Well, hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to what will be the last day, Trelly, of the SMITE Summer Masters here in the year 2023. I had to remember what year it was. I almost said the wrong thing. It's Goritz, Trelly, and of course it is the finals day. We're going to go into the third, fourth place match first. And for those of you who are sticking around or who were with us at least last night, I didn't lie to you. 13 hours later, and here we are to do it all again. We can take a look at the bracket if you're curious, man. What I'm talking about, how we got here yesterday. After about an hour and a half delay, we got into the games, got a 4-game set with the Warriors 3-1 over the Dragons. That put them in the finals. That put the Dragons in the match we're about to play. And then we had a lengthy one between the Ferrymen and the Hounds. A lot of long games, 40 to 50 minutes, honestly, per. And it goes all 5. Unfortunately for the Hounds, they fell to the Ferrymen, so while the Ferrymen are waiting in the finals for this set to finish, the Hounds are going to be taking on the Dragons just down the hall from where we're standing. Friendly reminder up front, first set here is a best of 3, not a best of 5, so it's going to be a little quicker for these two teams. And Trelly, there's an energy coming from these two squads. I know there was a lot of, even just straight up talking about it, like Coast having a tweet yesterday about how bad it felt.
Yep.
Considering it's his rookie season, to get semis, I don't know. Definitely, I think I understand the feels. Very successful so far. Hopefully, that isn't coming into this morning, maybe affecting him.
Yeah, as a competitor, right, you always want to be number one, but you gotta have realistic expectations as well. Going to semifinals in your rookie season seems pretty strong. Playing for third and fourth, also a big deal. But regardless, I think both of these teams should be number one. Excited, but number 2, considering the long set that the Hounds just had to overtake last night.
True.
Maybe the Jade Dragons come in feeling a little bit lighter on their feet, right? They didn't have to grind through that 5-game set. They weren't here until, I don't even know what time, 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. rather.
Yep, they were here till 10 a.m.
Something like that. So should be a fun one, no doubt.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really excited to see these teams take each other on. I think that it's a matchup we did get to see often throughout Phase 1, just considering what we've seen. And honestly, when we did see it throughout Phase 1, we just had a different Dragons that we were looking at that point, right? We were talking at that time, sieges weren't necessarily that clean. One game you'd get them looking fantastic. The next game you'd kind of wonder what had happened. Where did it go wrong? It feels like they've cleaned that up. They've kind of all kind of linked themselves together. And again, while this isn't maybe their ideal spot to be in, it's definitely, I think, a crazy change from, 2-7 to an 8 towards the very end. It was very much a struggle there in Phase 1, and I think making it to this point is still very impressive. Of course, the changes we've seen from them have been fantastic, and I'm wondering what we're going to see today, but, Jelly, I don't have any of that information. In fact, the only person I can think of that would is their coach, who's standing by, ready for an interview.
Yeah, that's right. I got Coach Marbach here from the Dragons standing by for the pregame interview. First off, start of the week, or start of last week, I should say. I guess it was technically the end of the week. Pretty good win for you guys over against the Camelot Kings. Tough loss yesterday against the Oni Warriors. Now going up against the Eldritch Hounds. What's kind of the general vibe of the team coming into the matchup today?
I would say we're back. We'll bounce back after yesterday. Yesterday wasn't ideal, but everybody's feeling good, and we're ready to come and play.
Now, after your set went to the full distance of 4 yesterday, we got to have a full 5-game set on the Eldritch Hounds. A lot of data maybe picked up from this team. What's kind of the thoughts of this matchup for you guys going up against the Eldritch Hounds?
The Hounds look really good, but I definitely think that there's some things that we can take advantage of for sure. A couple weaknesses we spotted, but yeah, we're back.
We're back. The only thing I did notice is you're not wearing the dragon suit today. No dragon suit, just going for some more general kind of cozy summer vibes here for yourself?
Yeah, I'm thinking if I wear it too much, I might wear it out,
Okay.
So I want to save it, be fresh for Worlds, I want to run out on stage with that, so.
Well, it's always good to have you here, Sam. I'll let you get back with your routine. That way you can get ready. Thanks for coming out for the interview. We'll throw it back to the desk.
Thank you.
I do appreciate the summer vibes, though, right?
Yeah,
because
100%.
I think that's what we've kind of heard from some of these teams has been like last day of school. I think Ducky had said, he's like, man, I'm not going to see anybody tomorrow. It's going to be so different. and I think that kind of, summer break on the horizon for everybody. But for these two teams, one more set, one best of 3 to try and break down. But more importantly, Trelly, while bringing the summer vibes and having maybe hey, you know what, tomorrow, vacation time, baby.
Right.
You're also coming in and saying, hey, we're back. Like, we're still going to do well. We're still going to play well. Everyone's feeling good, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that we're getting what should be a very interesting Dragons. Now, the other side, as the team that Trelly, they've probably got the hardest thing going on for them because they had to stay here until 10 p.m. and then get here at 10:30 a.m. to get ready for the game. And that's just a lot of competitive Smite back-to-back. And then, of course, after losing last night, waking up for this morning, maybe...
I didn't even know we can recline that much. Like, look how reclined Ducky is. Have
you never tried that?
I've never.
You cast in all the time does that.
Well, yeah, but I never recline. I got to be, looking. It's not even a good gaming position.
Yeah,
you want to be upright and,
Every time I've ever tried to do it, I almost always fall backwards. I'm terrible at it. But Ducky's, look at that. That's expert form.
And that is someone who, number one, is chill and ready for gameplay, but number two, wants to play Yorm and snap lock it every single game if possible. That is the gameplay style that Ducky has went for so far this tournament. When Yorm gets banned, he gets upset. When he actually gets his hands on it, looks pretty darn good.
And you know what? That's kind of what I'm excited for, is seeing what the picks and bans of this look like. You've got so much footage, if you're the Dragons, on who you are playing today. And there is so many picks that they could potentially try and ban out. I mean, we might start things off in a situation where you're already like, okay, well, we know that you like this, this, and this based on your set yesterday. We also know that they could just play it to the meta, the way we've seen a couple of times. Sometimes when we get late in those best-of-5 sets, you start seeing the very specific intricacies that have been successful for that set. Like Ganesh getting first pick, things like that, was probably still very specific to Hounds and Ferryman. But something that the Hounds, I think, could bring out today is some of their more specific pick styles that we saw yesterday that were successful for them.
And I'm excited to see exactly what's been changing up. Because remember, if you listen to the interview, Sam said there was some weaknesses they would like to try and exploit here. And I think the Hounds in particular, after a set like that, you're gonna have some drop plays, you're gonna have some missed opportunities. But they did stay incredibly consistent. Remember how long some of those sets were going, up to 50-plus minutes at times.
Yeah.
Because of that, the Hounds are maybe leaning towards that late game mentality, right? Maybe drafting towards a later portion in the match, which is something that I think the Jade Dragons have went to in times, but also they've been playing through Lasbra a lot, trying to go for early aggression, which is something that Oath has done as well. It's a difficult balancing act of, are we going to see that all-out aggression, level 2 scrapping before you even get your ultimates early game fights, or is it going to be some of the sets we were casting where it's 3 total kills by 20 minutes? And
well, you know what, Shelly? Here's what I learned yesterday.
Okay.
We had games that were 3 kills at 20 minutes, but they would end around 30, 35, right in that area. Versus, I think J-Mac and Mifflin had one game that was 20-0 at 20 minutes, and that one went 50. So maybe that one wasn't the one that went 50. I think the one that went 50 was like the one before that. I don't know that the kill count is maybe going to indicate at least game length today. But I'm also, I don't know, maybe it's the vibe in the air. This is either going to be a bloodbath, or like you said, well, I guess that's really the only two. Like we never have like a middling, like, oh, well, there were like some kills.
I mean, if there's the middle of the pack game, we don't even notice, right? We just gloss over it. So
it's either like, hey, you had 4 total kills this game, which is wild, or you had 100 kills this game, which is wild.
And I'm leaning towards the 100. That's not only what I would prefer, but I feel like that's just the actual sort of vibe of this set so far is going to be just all-out aggression, maybe slightly arena-esque, right? It's going to be, just a little bit, because I think kills are what's going to push this match forward. It's not going to be too much objective play until later on. But hey, if you're scrapping towards like the beacon at about like 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so, I'm down for that. If you're making those solo lane rotations those are the kind of fights we want to see regardless. So we'll have to see if that's the kind of gameplay style they put forward.
Well, you know what? We'll probably get a general vibe from that as we jump into picks and bans for game number 1. This might indicate the tone that we're going to be getting. Dragons will be the first pick here. And again, this is the 3rd, 4th place match. Money on the line for the boys. Maybe a little bit of pride as well. 3rd place throughout the first of the half of the year. Probably a couple more of those than needed to be in that sentence, but you get the point. The Dragons definitely doing some homework. I don't think this is now the 6th game in a row that Raw has been banned against him.
This is the 6th one, man.
And man, he just can't catch a break. He has wanted to play this. He even tweeted about it yesterday. And they just keep taking it away. But the Ganesh, something that I thought was maybe going to be strictly to Hounds or Ferryman, is still getting strictly banned against the Hounds here. As that gets taken out. Yorm, Rat, some picks. One that we saw being very strong yesterday, Trelly. And then one that we saw and see regularly from Lazara. Serket, something that Oath really liked. And it seems like, you know what, despite the air and the general, I guess, mood that the Dragons were giving, they did do their homework. They watched the sets, and they know exactly what to expect, and they are, unfortunately for some of the Hounds, banning something very appropriate, first picking in the Marty.
Well, Marty going to be the first grab. That does leave that Robin pick open, something that I thought might have been a little higher contested there for the Jade Dragons, but it looks like that Martikaros still does swing. So the Hounds are able to pick up the Robin for themselves. And remember, Oath is taking it into the jungle. And of course, Ducky is taking it into the solo lane. But Yamoja also going to go through. I love that Ganesh is higher priority than Yamoja at the moment. It's a little hilarious, but also makes sense considering how much peel, how much setup, and also disengage the Dharmic Pillars have been providing so far this tournament. And the Jade Dragons didn't value it in the first pick, and they certainly don't want to give it over to Quig. So smart call. Scary top 2 there for the Hounds.
Honestly, a deadly top 2 there for the Hounds. I mean, like you said, Ducky and Oath have looked great on this Robin. Oath played it first yesterday and was the reason it ended up getting banned because he had such a great performance on it. And then Ducky played it and made it look just as good. And so it's got a lot of versatility, a lot of flexibility, and honestly, plays well, meshes well with the Hounds' style. And Yamoja, specifically, is just one of Quig's better gods. It's really nice to see. Marty, solid first pick. One thing that catches me a little off guard, and I guess we've seen the Dragons play it again. Mike has played it a fair bit. They've thrown it in mid a couple of times here and there, but the Hell ban that comes from them, something that yesterday made sense against the Ferryman because Paul's been loving that pick, but definitely something we haven't seen as much the last couple of weeks with some of the changes. And with Yamoja, it feels like, Trelly, I'm not going to go as far as to say healers are dead, because that is just a lie.
Yeah.
We've seen them a lot, actually, still. But they've definitely been a little harder to make work lately, it feels like, for a lot of these teams. That being said, there's still some healing, right? Yamoja, but also the Baron Samedi, who gets locked in. Speaking of which, make sure you go to advanced.gg, get your Baron's Brew and the Baron's Brew combo while you can. Nice. And Tyr locked in here for the Dragons. All feels pretty solid for the Dragons as far as frontline goes.
Yep, scary top 3 there for the Jade Dragons. That Baron has been an answer to Yamoja for quite some time now. Just easy to pull in off the Riptide. You're never really able to get away from life of the party. And then, of course, Tyr. If you're not able to grab this Robin, Tyr does seem to be just as destructive out of the solo lane. So that one's a scary top 3 for the Jade Dragons. But Benny going towards the Discordia. Could have picked his Merlin. Decided against it. Had some great apples last night. Also some questionable ones. But again, if you're playing for 50 minutes, you're going to have some hits. You're going to have some misses. So this Discordia has been pretty strong for the Hounds as well. Seems like trying to focus out junglers is going to be the name of the game for both of these teams. Yeah. The second wave of bans, Vaca and Nemesis still being taken away. But notably, that Susano is a pick that I think both of these junglers could go to. That's something they're looking for. But at the top 3 for both these teams, a lot of CC. And Susano doesn't appreciate having to beat every time he wants to dive the backline.
The Discordia, something that we saw a lot. But like you had mentioned, jungle focus, jungle focus, jungle focus. And I think I have to add one more jungle focus for the 4 bans.
Yep, nice.
Nemesis, Pele from the Hounds, Bakasura, Susano for the Dragons. And now here's the thing. When we watch the Dragons, Baron Samedi, that's Mike's, right? I don't think I've seen many other people on this team play it. Technically, I think they can and have in the past thrown it in mid, but it feels like something that is very common for Mike to play. And I was going to lead that into a question about what kind of bottom 2 they would lock in, but Coast going to an EU Classic here with the Heimdall. Something that we haven't seen too much of, but honestly, it just fits his playstyle.
Certainly does, and I do want to give Ducky the thumbs up for the Snorlax socks. He was asking. I'm not sure if he was asking us in particular. He was just sort of thumbs up, thumbs down to the crowd, and I'm going to say yes. But the Heimdall, I think, safety, name of the game, right? Up against Marty. He has that get-out-of-jail-free card with Death from Above. He's able to zoom out whenever he wants. Because of that, you kind of want to try and draft some safety of your own, and as you said, coming from the USCC, Coast has a Heim in his back pocket at any given moment. Hasn't seen it in a bit, but still does bring that level of safety to the team fight. Mercury actually going to be the lock-in there for the Jade Dragons, a pick that I certainly wasn't expecting in that slot, but has been at the top of the meta at times, but it's been vastly overlooked as we are currently, just because Shred and Pen and trying to shred through tanks has been just a little bit more prominent. Crit, not in the best spot right now. Pair that with an Oleron, should be interesting.
All right, Shelly. Before we find out where they lie, I'm going to ask your opinion. Raven solo versus Thor solo, or if you want to take it, Raven jungle versus Thor jungle.
Yeah.
Which do you prefer?
Raven jungle, just because they hover the Wukong, so I'm thinking that was the call. Ducky's like, do I want Thor, do I want Wukong? And he goes back to the Thor. As a preference, that's a tough one. I think Raven can play anywhere. Thor I prefer in jungle, right? So it's like I prefer the damage build just a little bit more, but I just think Raven is so strong right now no matter how you decide to play him and how you build him. So I still think Oath should take the Raven because he looks so solid on it, but it could go either way.
I've got good news for you.
That's great.
Oath is taking the Raven, and it will be ducking on Thor. And so it lines up exactly with what you said. He looked good on it yesterday, might as well play it. Ducky's had a pretty good Thor over the last couple of weeks. I'm excited to see that one. But, Charlie, the thing that stands out to me, both of these compositions just scream fight. They scream kill, they scream go. And admittedly, if that's the pace these teams are going to set, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where we feel like this is going to be a more kill-oriented game, maybe than what we've been seeing the last couple of days.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case, number one. But number two, I think you're right. The tier, the Thor should be providing some crazy ults once team fight time rolls around. Of course, you always have to be watching out from the Sonic Boom from Mercury, a pick that has not been played in a bit. So maybe we forget about those sort of plays. Right? When Merc's constantly in the meta, you're used to warding behind your tier 2s. You're always looking in front of you, making sure that spectral armor is built, things like that. When he's not in the meta, sometimes you forget about those sort of things. And, of course, the Oleron is a big question mark for me. Is this going to be, hey, we're burning objectives, we're going double ADC, we're just trying to go for structures? Or are you using that sanctified field for these team fights consistently? Are you going to be able to keep Oleron alive? That's always the question when he gets locked in. He doesn't have any CC immunity. He's very immobile, those sort of things.
You know, yesterday, me and you, we were talking a lot about, like, anti-auto attack itemization right now, and how it can help out. Probably going to be needed here for the Hounds to try and make things feel really good. Again, though, third, fourth place on the line. I guess third place is on the line. Fourth place is what happens if you lose here. It's a best of 3 between these two teams. And Trelly, this is the tone setter, I think, for the set. And, of course, the I guess, tone setter for the day. What kind of set they're going to leave us going towards the finals. For these teams, money is on the line, as well as bragging rights. And of course, we're going to see exactly what they have to offer for us, how exactly these comps are going to get played here as we jump into Game 1 with J-Mac and Mifflin.
That's right. It's the Jade Dragons, the Eldritch Hounds here in a best of 3 for their third place match to see who's going to win out. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug. I'm just going to give a shout out to Mike for going for Big Hat Baron more than anything else. One of my favorite little features in the game. But as we jump in with the Dragons and the Hounds, I want to immediately kind of point towards Lazarus' pick, at least for the first one that catches my mind. Crit hasn't really been that much of a meta ever since we jump over into 10.6. Even at tail end 10.5, weren't seeing as much crit. How does Mercury kind of change up now that dynamic of his build is kind of essentially fallen out of the meta entirely?
Yeah, I'm not certain that he can completely forego crit, because as far as auto attack jungles are concerned, Mercury is not as good as the ones that also don't build crit. Like, why go to Mercury if you can just play Bakasura or even an Arachne for that matter? I suppose the global presence, but crit is what makes Mercury good. In a meta where crit has seen a severe nerf thanks to Spectral Armor getting a massive buff, maybe you still have to build it. I'm not certain, J-Mac. We don't see Mercury unless he's building crit. We'll just say that.
Yeah, it's been a while since it's been meta. We'll have to see what Lasber does. Going for a normal, what I assume standard start of the Golden Blade. I mean, that's
kind of typical, at least of the Mercuries for your first item, and then we start to see things like the Rage, the Deathbringer, those kinds of items start to stack up a little bit afterwards. So we'll keep eyes. Immediately, though, Mike and Vote go to get a little bit of poke on Coast and Quig up in the duo lane, walking up to fight them before they even move up to the wave, as Mike tends to love to do on his supports. Play that annoyance factor. Be up there, get that early poke, try and find any kind of advantage you can in lane.
Mike is a big proponent of the, if I'm annoying, I'm doing it right. So we'll see how well he can perform on that Baron Samdi, that hyper-aggressive role. Easy to put out the damage, easy to resustain in lane, but not so easy to reposition. And if Mike wants to get aggressive towards purple buff in the future, we've seen him attempt green buff invades on his own as well. He needs to play very wary of that positioning.
Lasbra, gotta be careful. Oath finds the slow, but Benny Q a little too far away to get any kind of extra punishment. Lasbra and Dardas both poked under half HP. Lasbra even further down into the red health nearly for himself. Jade Dragons losing out on the early 2v2 in mid, but still winning out in some of the neutral farm game. Very slight gold lead for the Jade Dragons. Some of that gold, though, pushed under tower, at least over in the dual lane. And right lane is somewhere we will get to check on a little bit later. Between Ducky and Nika, the impact that these two gods can have. The build paths, I imagine, very similar between the two of them as well.
Yeah, but yesterday when we'd see Ducky take the Thor, he was largely relegated to just sitting in lane, had really lost out on pressure, was forced to hang out, wasn't allowed to leverage that global ultimate, wasn't allowed to get involved towards mid. Thor is not picked for his laning phase. You don't pick Thor for his ability to bully out your opponent there. It's all about what you can get done on the map. So I'll be keeping my eyes on Ducky. Would like to see him get a bit more present towards the center. Could be, and this is true of the majority of Soul Laners, he holds off on that rotation until the control point spawns up. But I think really anything he could do to burn a beads off of Dardes or get an ultimate off of Dardes would just be immensely valuable. Better than anything he could really get accomplished in this lane, because for the most part, once Nika ticks over to level 6, he's going to have the sustain advantage. He'll have a pretty decent poke advantage as well. Going to be difficult to control the totem.
Fight up around at least the Cyclops camp here between Mike and Quig. Trying to clear out a couple of those small ones is Mike. He was successful in taking some of that XP away from the Eldritch Hounds. I wonder when the gas pedal is, or when the go button, I should say, hits for both these two teams. The Eldritch Hounds, Oath, once he gets level 5, has that dive-in potential, extra CC immunity. Lasbra, he's got that Sonic Boom available in the jungle. I wonder when we do see these two junglers start to get a little bit involved. Imagine at least probably first item online before we just see them jump in, but not only a win, but also maybe aware, maybe at least any idea where you would prefer to see these junglers start to get a bit active.
Yeah, get Oath over to Vote and get him over to Vote as soon as possible. Anytime there's an older run in the game, that's where your jungler probably should just be. Otherwise, Lasbra's got a little bit of a more difficult time trying to figure out where his gank's going to go. It's one of the safest hunters. Porsche Coast is piloting that Heimdall CC immunity ultimate as well as a dash, has that teleport, which is essentially a global if you elect to use it that way, knock up immunity. Very difficult to shut down a Heimdall. You can't even sneak up on him because he's got vision in the jungle every time he channels that first ability. So, if duo lane's going to be a struggle for Lasbra, maybe you can rotate through Benny Q's lane, you can catch Ducky before he stacks up too much defense, going down the shield tree in first slot. It won't stop too much the DPS from this Mercury. And Mercury actually has some pretty interesting matchups in a Thor, some interesting interactions. If Ducky holds on to Hammer, well, yeah, the second he throws it, he's probably going to get thrown by Lasbra, lose out on that teleport. So for the most part, if Lasbra shows up in the solo, it'll likely be Ducky headed up to the air to find some safety. That's not to say as well that there aren't opportunities to gank the dual lane for Lasbra, but it would be difficult. It'd have to be the classic walk-through lane, ult from tower style play.
When we saw emoji yesterday, the question then came up, how early, how soon, maybe even how many shells / phantom shells get picked up. We already see the first one from Mike, though. Gonna get an ultimate out of Benny Q. Beads a little bit later just to make sure he doesn't get dragged in by the coffin. And Oath missing out on the root to PBM means that Mike will be able to walk away just fine. But it's a huge win for Mike. He uses ult, gets not only Benny's ult, but also his safety in the relic.
Yeah, Benny was not ready for that rotation. We've seen a new duo lane meta developed in that supports don't generally leave until that 7 to 8 minute mark, it feels like. And so, with PBM breaking that mold, getting involved towards the center of the map so early, Benny lose out on every bit of CC immunity that he's got in kit or otherwise. About a minute for that ultimate, 2 minutes on the beads. and plenty of opportunity now for Lazra to start rotating through.
And now, do we see Lazra try and make that rotation in? Well, Oath and Quig at least going to try and slow that down a little bit. Lazra's got Sonic Boom. He can jump from just about any part of the lane to try and cruise his way down mid, try and find that gank opportunity to Benny. He's got a good follow-up with Dardas as well. We know just how much damage that ultimate can do on a Marty, even at only level 1 with only a single item, not even fully stacked up. We know just how much damage that Dardas is capable of with this Martikros. So, seeing that combo of Dardas and Lazra could spell for an early first blood in that lane. Lazra tries to go for a speed buff invade. Unsuccessful in taking that one out. Charge up the Sonic Boom, won't use it. Has it just in case Oath or maybe Benny Q close gap to try and take him down.
Yeah, I like the idea from Lazra, right? It's a pretty slow farmer in Raven. Takes a little while to work through those jungle buffs. Lazra's already got the Golden Blade, more movement speed, and just faster jungle clear. It means that any opportunity you have where you can rotate through the enemy jungle, just heat check it, see if something's up, probably pretty valuable. Also, in showing up to that speed buff, Oath forced to chase out against Lazra. Oath actually zones himself from the red buff farm. I believe Benny solos that out for himself. And so, Oath will likely be slightly behind now. We'll start to see that develop as Lazra clears out his own jungle.
3 versus 2 left side. Lazra on the way. Keeping that Sonic Boom in his back pocket, ready to jump in any given time. But shield buff will go over to the dual lane of the Jade Dragons. The game still remains even. No deaths just yet. 7 minutes in. Haven't even really seen a fight just yet. A couple little scraps over in mid in the early 2v2, but outside of there, it has been a fairly quiet fight, besides Mike's rotation towards mid as well just a little while ago. But Benny Q's beads are about to come back out. That was a 2.5 minute cooldown on that relic, and we're 15 seconds from Benny having that safety once more.
Yeah, the Dragons will have opportunities, but they don't necessarily need to do anything. It's a very strong scaling composition. Need some peel here. Mike sent through the realms.
But Vote drops down his own ultimate. That's going to try and play bailout, but Mike lands right inside the rivers. Goes up to the coffin for the immunity, but Quig will stop in his place and keep him from going through. Oath missed out on the ultimate, but Coast has the autos. And the in-hands are good. The Eldritch Hounds on top first.
Man, Vote did so much damage there. Sanctified Field out for so long, but that's one of the weaknesses of Baron Samedi in support. Even with that amount of peel, even with that amount of damage coming from his ADC, you can't really reposition when you've been caught like that. And so Mike eventually does fall down in spite of a few abilities off the mark there from the Eldritch Hounds. Wonder if there could have been an opportunity for Lazra to rotate over. Lazra was on the right side jungle, but that fight was very long. Mike survived a very long time. 2 full ability rotations, buys time with the ultimate, heals up as well, uses the shell. That is the maximum amount of time that Baron Samedi could have survived. And so, someone probably could have rotated through. Dardas could have got there, perhaps, but instead, the Jade Dragons sticking with that path of least resistance, as I was saying earlier. There's not really a whole lot of reason to fight in the early game when you have a composition that scales this well into the late game. Olaron, Martikros, Mercury, these are all 25, 30-minute plus gods.
Well, Lazra will start into his crit. We were wondering that at the top of the game. Was he going to forego the crit because it's maybe not as potent with some of the changes that have come not only to the damage of crit itself, but even so the spectral armor, and he will at least start to stack up towards it. So, now the question for the Eldritch Hounds is who will be the one to buy the spectral armor to try and deal with him? Do you give it over to Ducky? Might be sitting a little bit further back. Do you throw it on a Quig? Maybe Oath for this Robin to try and go for some of those 1v1 boxing potentials up against him? Don't imagine it's an immediate, you got to pick it up second item, but fairly soon in the build, you think it goes through. Another ultimate from Benny and another beads as well. Mike is able to force these relics out so easily on this Baron just for how long that coffin channel lasts. He'll trade out a little bit of damage towards Dardas as well.
But last time he had forced everything off of Benny, it was a whole lot of nothing happening in the middle of the map. Lazra could rotate through, but probably doesn't want to fight at least until he finishes up this second item. Crit's not what it used to be. Now need to finish it up to the 3rd tier if you want any of that crit chance. And so, Benny's got a little bit of time to rest and get some of those cooldowns back. With Chronos Pendant in first slot, he'll at least have Golden Apple by the time a fight comes his way. And the Jade Dragons, I think probably just getting aggressive, allowing Mike to burn these resources or take these fights in mid just as a preventative measure. Okay, well, you don't want to fight us now, right, Hounds? I mean, Benny's got nothing. Don't come into our jungle. Let us farm up. Let us scale and progress the match.
Mike still walking up by himself. Gets a heal, but he's rooted in place. Got some backup from Dardas and from Lasper standing by to make sure that the Eldritch Hounds don't step too far out of line. We're about a minute and a half from this first beacon spawn up. We've been seeing a lot of fast rotations from either the solo lane or the hunter, and in some cases, we've even seen full 5v5s even on first or second beacon in order to try and get at least that first advantage, that first stack through. And
That's
Nika
messed up.
actually steals away the blue buff from Ducky. All the while, doesn't feel great for a Ducky. In fact, we even saw yesterday in one of his matchups, whenever he kept losing that blue, ended up having to go towards Earrings Tier 1 just to have that extra MP5 for how much it was stolen away.
Yeah, Ducky, that is an unfortunate loss of blue buff there in his own tower as well. I mean, we saw it in the player cam. He had a bit of a chuckle. Was surprised that Nico was going to blink in. But with this lack of presence from both junglers so far this game, I think those are the types of plays you're allowed to make. If Oath had shown more presence in the soul lane earlier, it's pretty unlikely that Nika's going to be blinking through the enemy blue buff into a tier 1 tower. But I don't think this Robin's really hit anybody. I don't think Lazarus really hit anybody either. It's all about farm for now. Eldritch Hounds essentially playing at the Jade Dragon's pace.
Pull back towards Quig, but he stands against the wall to prevent being thrown back through. Golden Apple hits on the Laspra, and now it's Oath showing up. Laspra, he's got the rivers to block off all paths to get out, and it's 2 kills now for the Eldritch Hounds. Maybe looking for another one. Darda's up in the sky, but as soon as he lands down, it's to do a whole heap of damage. Quig, credit for this kill, and 3rd now for the Eldritch Hounds.
Man, the Jade Dragons just get overly aggressive in the enemy jungle there. I couldn't tell you exactly what incites that anger to just walk towards the Eldritch Hounds. The counter initiation of the Hounds is incredibly strong. We saw it. Quig throws up the rivers, and there's no response from the Jade Dragons. Not until Polar Bear Mike finishes up that relic. Need that Phantom Shell sooner rather than later, clearly, as Dardas gets caught out as well. The Eldritch Hounds stick to their reactionary style, and it's what had served them so well up against the Ferrymen yesterday. A few of their wins, 2 of them, off the back of just waiting for some errors, waiting for some unbridled aggression from their enemy. Given an opportunity just like yesterday here, the Jade Dragons got bored, I suppose, just wanted to run it down.
They did, but unfortunately they paid the price for it. Now dropping 2 kills in that team fight to the Eldritch Hounds, 3 up for the rookie team. It's also net them about a 2,000 gold lead over the Jade Dragons with just those few kills. Same as far as XP is concerned, and now maybe a 4th one vote under his own tower. He's got ultimate, and he's holding on to it. I think that's because Mike is showing up to bail him out. Big heal coming from Mike to make sure that he stays alive, plus Vote's own self-sustain. Make sure that he's not under as much threat under that tier 1 tower.
No ultimate from Mike there. He had already burnt the beads off of Quig. Quig's in no man's land, and Vote's nearby and has a ton of damage with the double ring start already finished up. I think that could have been a punish onto the Emoja for her aggressive positioning, but the Jade Dragons, looking at vision on map, haven't exactly got the best wards on left-hand side. Maybe we're concerned that Oath was nearby.
Gold Fury going down fast. Sanctified Field here, and a slow bubble on nothing that the Eldritch Hounds can do to fight inside that field. Golden Apple just off the mark. Lasbra holding on to that Sonic Boom just in case. But the Jade Dragons walk up, take the Fury with no fight back from the Hounds.
Yeah, the Hounds thinking to themselves, oh, we poked out Vote. It's not an issue. We'll just reset ourselves. Oath's happily farming on the right side of the map. Unfortunately for them, Eldritch Hounds hadn't taken into account how much damage the Jade Dragons have got. Here's Quig, still no beads.
Gets pulled back in. Sonic Boom under the tower, and a perfect CC chain for the Jade Dragons will net their first kill of the game. It's just that simple. You called it earlier, why not use it on Quig under the tier 1 on the dual lane? Well, Mike was saving it for the tier 1 in mid.
Yeah, fortunately for him, still had about 10 seconds left on Quig's beads timer, just now getting it back and available. And here's the Jade Dragons go button. Seems like Lazar gets crit, and all of a sudden things start to speed up. The ability to shred objectives has not been nerfed. Rage still good, crit real good at PvE. Saw how quickly they were able to deal with that Gold Fury and the Pyromancer now as well. Polar Bear Mike holding on to the Runic Bomb. Could put some pressure into this tier 1 in mid if he so chooses.
But not going to go to tier 1 just yet. Benny Q still standing by. Level 16 on Discordia. Highest farm in the game for anybody as far as XP is concerned. Benny Q actually skipping finishing up what I assume would be that Staff of Mirrodin third item, just getting the tier 1 of it, then going to tier 1 of Pen, now going back over to it. Maybe a little bit confused on which item he wanted to prioritize in his early build, but now working towards that Staff of Mirrodin, something that really only BennyQ's kind of going towards for these mage-style builds. You haven't seen a whole lot of mages, granted, but it feels like Benny's the only one still kind of picking up this Mirrodin.
It's still a good stat stick. It's maybe not the most cost-efficient item, but considering Benny starts just about every single fight with Golden Apple, I'm not going to hate on it too much.
Did see a fight break out there for a moment.
I really thought something was going to happen, man. I'm sorry.
It felt like it. I mean, everybody's squared up. Ultimates are all online aside from Lazarus. Beads are available for just about everybody. Tier 1 tower goes down. This will start up a fight for Mike and Vote. Mike's going to try and speed out of there, but Oath shows up, and River's Rebuke will lock in 3. No Phantom Shell available. And Oath goes for the dive in, but Vote is perfectly healthy. BennyQ shows up to try and slow things down and knocks out PBM once more. Second kill for Quig, and now they wanted to Vote because now Ducky is on this side of the map. Finds a great wall to lock in the Yola run. And the Eldritch Hounds, their go buttons, the left side, tier 1 and tier 2. And now pushing to a Phoenix. The Jade Dragons have got to get back fast. But it seems the Eldritch Hounds unwilling to stick around with Lazarus, Dardes, and Nika both back, or I should say all 3 back on the way.
Yeah, don't want to get caught out on that left side bird. Love that play from the Eldritch Hounds, though. Just rotate behind the tower. Catch out PBM. Vote was privy to it. Was already in the tier 2. Says, Mike, hey, bud, look, my spotty senses are tingling. There's going to be at least 3, maybe 4. Vote doesn't get them all. There's 5 that show up from the Eldritch Hounds. But Mike, always a brave player, wouldn't have put himself in danger's way. Does so once more just to buy some space for Vote. But eventually does fall down to the might, the combined might of all 5 members of the Eldritch Hounds. Vote left high and dry. Lazarus was there. But if you looked at the map, wouldn't believe it because he's full HP walking through the enemy purple buff at the time. Ripcord says, oh, Mike's dead. Bad numbers advantage. You know, Nika's on the right side of the map. No reason for me to die here. Completely disengages. And so the Eldritch Hounds take a 5 versus 2. And I don't know how much Smite you've played, J-Mac, but every 5 versus 2 I've played has generally gone pretty well.
For the 5.
That's right.
Yeah. Unless you're part of the 2. Then I imagine you're probably winning those 2s.
No, I am a detriment in all cases.
Try to gas you up a little bit, but sometimes you just got to accept reality in cases here. The Eldritch Hounds now stacking up for second beacon. Nika and Dardes here. Mike on the way down the lane, so it'll be a 3 versus 3 should Oath stick around and try and defend. But even with Ducky's rotation, we've seen big fights break out for the Stygian Beacon. Ducky has ultimate, so he can crash in from just about anywhere through. Might not even need it. Walls off Mike. Nowhere for him to go. And still no Phantom Shell for the next 15 seconds. Quig's ultimate might come up just in time to catch them before one final cooldown, but Jade Dragons are not going to step up. Second beacon going to the Hounds.
Just a little bit too much poke into Mike. We see that so often. The Stygian Beacon, just valuable enough that everybody will rotate towards it, but not valuable enough that you'll take a fight with any disadvantage. So with Mike down to about half, the Eldritch Hounds get themselves a free one. The Jade Dragons fizzle that engagement once more. Both neutral objectives back on the map, J-Mac, Pyromancer and Oni Fury available. Only one Runic Bomb in play. Polar Bear Mike still holds on to his. Maybe the Eldritch Hounds try and split neutrals here, because if the Jade Dragons are left alone with either Pyro or Gold, they'll disappear pretty fast.
Ducky fast gets to the sky from the poke out by the Jade Dragons. Looked like he was contemplating for a moment diving back in, but realizing his team was nowhere around him, he'll wisely just disengage from it. It's Pyromancer for the Dragons, but a Fury for the Eldritch Hounds. A little slow to go. The Eldritch Hounds will be able to at least trade out objective for objective, so a Runic Bomb in the pocket of the Dragons, but now Oni minions on next spawn for the Eldritch Hounds, I should say. Jade Dragons have got to find some way to at least hold out against those, though given the game state of the map at the moment, probably not much damage that these Oni minions will be able to do.
No, the towers have already been stripped on the left-hand side. Maybe if you're left unattended, a tier 1 will fall in mid, a low-value tier 1 on right. The Eldritch Hound's not exactly far enough ahead either to leverage those enhanced minion waves. Generally, we've seen in the past, okay, Oni minions spawn up, people have to rotate to deal with them. Let's group up on Fire Giant. Let's group up on this lane. Force the attention of our enemies. I'm not thinking the Eldritch Hounds are in a position to siege right now, especially into such a strong siege defense composition from the Jade Dragons. So it's more so just the Oni Fury, the stats you get from it, the gold, the experience, while everybody continues to stack up. But speaking of stacking up and building up power, the Jade Dragon's about to hit critical mass on a few of their players. Stacking up some defense now for PBM, 6 deep on his Prophetic Cloak. Vote very far into his build, has gone largely unchecked, maybe 2 attempted ganks on him, so 3 rings finished. And Typhon's just on the tail end for a little bit of lifesteal and penetration. It's going to be real difficult for anyone on the Eldritch Hounds to take a 1v1 up against Vote. That's never been the answer to Olorun. You kind of jump them.
I will say Lasbra, kind of deviating from the norm, did go crit second item. That's what we discussed a bit. But then goes into Phalanx. We've been seeing this a lot with some of the more auto-centric assassins. But it just feels so strange on Mercury. Anytime I think of Mercury, I think of the one-punch god. You walk up, you got crit, you hit him for 800 to 1,000 damage, tap him maybe once or twice, and they're gone. The build like this isn't one where Lasbra's going to be in and out of fights. These feel like it's more elongated for him. Nika finds a push on 2, breaks himself out, but gets pulled back by a Riptide, stuck with an apple. He's the Lawbringer to get out, but Ducky trying to cut up the path, misses the dunk, but not enough damage towards Nika. He's able to blink out.
Yeah, Nika just playing with fire there. Realized after the first stun, oh, okay, these guys actually don't do any damage. Goes immediately into the aggressive Fearless, and how punished was he? Not at all. Lost out on Lawbringer, but got Golden Apple, got Anvil of Dawn, and I believe Oath uses his ultimate there as well. So, 3-for-1 trade, and the Jade Dragons come out on top.
So now, having only lost that ultimate from Nika, and him having a decent bit of CDR in his build already, should be coming back up fairly soon. It'll just be the blink that'll take a moment to return. What did the Jade Dragons do with this? There's no Pyro up, there's no Fury, at least for next minute or so. Fire Giant, probably out of the question unless they can find a pick. It's back to return to neutral. Jade Dragons, mentioned it earlier, no real need to fight just yet. So the Eldritch Hounds will be the ones to pull the ripcord. Starting up the Fire Giant, seeing who they can bait forward. It's Nika and PBM, the first ones on the scene. And now Oath on the way. Ducky trying to zone out. The Eldritch Hounds may just give this Fire Giant, go for the fight instead. Mike already down to a quarter HP, hit by the apple. And it's as good as dead. The shell keeps him alive, but Oath will make sure that he perishes after. Nika slips through the River's Rebuke. And it's Dardes up to the sky, but now he's surrounded by 4. Nika caught by the wall, and a sonic boom blocked by the wall. Those will go down as Ducky finds a double dunk to the back, but where's the follow-up? Benneq too far, only finds a couple with the strife damage, but Ducky's still walking up, taking this tower. Only 2 casualties so far in this team fight.
I am astounded, absolutely astounded. One, that the Eldritch Hounds do win out on that team fight and find themselves in a position to take down a tier 1 tower on the tail end, because Vote goes unchecked for the entire engagement. There's one point where Vote is maybe 10 units away from the 3-man core of the Eldritch Hounds, just shooting auto attacks into their backs, and there was no response. All that fight happens because Lazarus on the left-hand side split pushing. The Eldritch Hounds try and make something happen for themselves, and perhaps can do so more. Lasbra in some trouble, dash in 1 second. Should just be enough, but Ducky will catch and release. Won't continue that chase. Hammer would have come up in a moment, and Anvil of Dawn not too far behind it, but you never know how many members of the Jade Dragons are hovering just behind them. Eldritch Hounds, they've come up with a unique answer to the Olorun problem. We're in a late game situation and Olorun's one of the best team fighters, and their answer is ignore them. Let's just walk past them. Don't even think about them. For the most part, it could work. If you're not caught in Sanctified Fields, Olorun really can't lock you down.
It's the old classic solution. Just ignore the problem until it eventually goes away.
Or it catches up to you.
Sometimes that problem may just rear its head back around, and you have to deal with it. And because you haven't dealt with it, now it's become even bigger of a problem than before. Third and final beacon ready to spawn up. Eldritch Hound's already on the scene, which means that we'll have the Titans spawning in. Which lane do the Titans go down at this point? Believe it would be solo lane, given the state of the towers. And it will be over towards the right side of the map, so we'll be seeing Titans run down over near Fire Giant, which could make for an interesting dynamic after. If team fight goes well around Titans, could see one team go for Fire right after.
Yeah, team fight around the Titan doesn't always happen. Usually when there's a more established lead, that's where we see the fight actually take place, when a team says, oh, if we win here, we can continue to siege. Well, the game as close as it is, excuse me, and the Jade Dragons having so much single target DPS on their team, Dardez, Vote, Lazra, all would very quickly deal with a Titan, be it in their tier 2 or otherwise. And so the Eldritch Hounds might just try and use that Titan push to distract the Jade Dragons, perhaps give them an opportunity to look towards the Fire Giant or this Gold Fury.
Ducky staring down 2 in mid, fighting against those 2, gets a wall up against Lasbra, has some bailout from Oath now showing up. So a disjointed fight, and players separated. Nika gonna go back. Mike just jukes out the second Riptide from Quigs. He'll get back to safety with Dardez, but BennyQ standing very far forward by himself. Golden Apple on top of Mike. River to lock him down. Does have the Phantom Shell to bail himself out, but he's used it for himself, and he's got no backup either. Oath crashes back into the party, and now it's PBM in the grayscale. Oath dives in on top of Vote. The ultimate is there for the Yola run, has it if he needs it. And now that Ducky has crashed in, Vote will drop it through and force the Hounds to the right side of the map. Vapor's Coast so low in the fight, and Nika's gonna go right through, but a good knockup keeps Nika away and keeps Vapor's Coast alive. And now it's Nika who's on a full run. The Jade Dragons just can't close out their kill.
No, the Jade Dragons really need Lazra in that fight a bit sooner. Sonic Boom connects with a few targets, but the Eldritch Hounds had so many resources left. Meditation, the majority of their beads still available. We're able to disengage relatively easily. Mike, left high and dry once more, tries to get something started. A play that had worked for him 4 times in a row in the middle of the map. Pre-10 minutes. Doesn't work so well here as we start to approach that 30-minute mark. Drops the ultimate onto BennyQ. Benny says, look, I'll use Golden Apple this time, but also Quig is here, and he's incredibly tanky. He'll just take the stun for me. Well played to the support of the Eldritch Hounds, as Lazra's in no man's land.
Gets caught by the Riptide and is as good as dead. A bit of a late ultimate by Oath there. Thinking maybe he would slip through, but it's still a pick on a Lasbra. Both Titans dealt with on the right side of the map. The Eldritch Hounds still up only by a small gold lead, even despite how many kills they've been able to pick up, how many fights have happened through. It's still only 3,000 gold between them. And here 30 minutes into the game, that 3,000 between all 5 members, at best maybe a tier 1 item that separates any given player.
But there's still 30 seconds left on Lazar's respawn, so watch 3 become 4 and 4 become 5 as Pyromancer and Fire Giant start to receive some damage. Fire Giant seems to be the target first. Want to make use of that entire respawn timer. Ducky, Oath, both making up the front line here, trying to keep the Jade Dragons at bay.
Fire Giant down to 40%. Nika is here. Ducky goes up to the sky. And a River's Rebuke to separate this. The Eldritch Hounds are committing to the Fire Giant. Ducky gets an ultimate away from Dardez as fire goes around all 5 of the Eldritch Hounds. Jade Dragons, nothing they can do to get in the fight with Mike so far away. They had no way to break through the river.
So it's Fire Giant, it's Pyromancer, and it's probably a Gold Fury. The Eldritch Hounds have their way. The Jade Dragons, base defense is still pretty decent. The ability to keep these minion waves out, that responsibility almost entirely belongs to Dardez, but with Acid Rain, it's not exactly a hard task for him. Vote, immense damage. The initiation from the Eldritch Hounds, pretty committal for Ducky and Oath. Quig can try his best from range. Those Riptides, pretty good at selecting individual targets, but I don't see this being an easy siege. Not by a long shot. The Eldritch Hounds probably want to find a pick in the jungle first, and with the Jade Dragons on Gold Fury, this could be an opportunity.
Gold for the Dragons. Hounds just standing by and watching this happen, though. Quig trying to cut off one path if possible. Ultimate still down from its use over at Fire. Maybe you can catch a lazy back. Try and find yourself a pick. Could make your siege that much easier. But finding that pick is the hard part at this point. Ducky will split push on the right. 4 from the Hounds group up in mid. Riptide finds Nika, but Nika undeterred by the damage of the Eldritch Hounds thrown his way. As all 5 of the Dragons grouped up around mid. Lasper sitting to the back, waiting for an opportunity to use that Sonic Boom to get the fight started.
Yeah, I don't think you want Sonic Boom starting your fight, though. It's got to be a push from Nika or a pull from PBM. Instead, it's nothing, and the Eldritch Hounds will take the tier 2 tower. Not a whole lot of response. There's the push. Beads off Benny, who has taken the most aggressive pathing I think I have ever seen. Trying his best to get caught out there. Walks in 1 versus 4, essentially. Fortunately for him, though, beads were available. Won't be again. Not for a few more minutes. Good luck catching Lasbra. That is the fastest god in Smite.
And able to get out of dodge pretty quickly with Sonic Boom. But Now it's a hefty cooldown from Lasbra. Won't have it for this next fight. Ducky standing outside in the jungle while the Eldritch Hounds start their slow push on this right side tier 2 tower. Without the minions there makes it a little bit slower, but even one minion stepping foot makes it easy for Coast to knock down towers. So no more permanent structures left for the Eldritch Hounds to deal with. It's all Phoenixes, but with this only being a regular Fire Giant, not enhanced, bit of a tough siege to the Eldritch Hounds. Decent bit of gold in pocket for a few players, so the Hounds will head back to base to reset.
Start upgrading some of those relics, maybe finish up some starter items, get a bunch of vision in pocket, the most important. I'm watching how many sentries the Eldritch Hounds can walk out of base with here, and it's 3 in pocket. Just about no vision from the Jade Dragons on map as it stands. Only 1 ward for the Jade Dragons. It is so difficult to take any positioning on map if you don't have the information. You never know which corners you're going to turn, and 4 or 5 members of the Eldritch Hounds are just sitting just behind it. And so, the Hounds, with these deep, aggressive wards, have already found themselves in a very advantaged position for this next Fire Giant. It'll be a few minutes, or a little bit under a minute, I should say, until that one respawns. Maybe the Jade Dragons can try for a steal. Use Vote from range. I don't think they want to take a fight in neutral territory. Not just yet. The Eldritch Hounds have done very well to just utilize Ducky as a repositioning tool. Send him to the back line with the Anvil of Dawn. Throw up a wall behind.
Ooh. Not the best apple from Benny Q. Misses on all bounces up against Nika, but still gets the job done. Forces the Lawbringer out from the tier, puts Nika back at the base, and sets up the Hounds for an offensive front elsewhere. Where will that be? Mid lane, minions are pushed all the way to the halfway point, but too far away on the left side. Right might be their only answer, but even then, doesn't seem to be their call. Pyromancer sets a respawn in just a moment, and that'll be the call for the Eldritch Hounds. They get their ultimate away from Nika, and they can take an objective while they wait for fire to come back up.
So 2 runic bombs in play now for the Eldritch Hounds. 2,000 true damage in pocket. Tons of advantage across the board. Itemization advantage too. The only thing is that beads off of Oath. 90 seconds there. That might slow down the Eldritch Hounds. The Jade Dragons, on the other hand, have hit some significant power spikes. Lasbra now with Deathbringer has got that one-punch style of play available to him. Sonic Boom connects with Benny. If Benny's beads are down, and they have been for the majority of this game, connect with him. 1, maybe 2 auto attacks is all it would take. But there are answers developed by the Eldritch Hounds. Finally, a Spectral Armor picked up, a question we had asked 30 minutes ago. Who's going to buy it? It's Ducky in the 6th slot. So who's going to benefit? For the most part, it's probably just going to be Ducky. Had it been Quig to pick up Spectral, he's playing a little bit more so around his allies. Ducky's really just utilizing his ultimate to get into that back line. And for the most part, it's going to be him and Oath back there. I don't think the rest of the team is going to be joining them.
Nika does get hit by the combo of Ducky, but he'll laugh away the damage dealt to him. Oath gonna split push up towards mid. Might force Lasbra to stick around to the backside of the fight as well. Even the Soul Laner for the Dragons now rotating back to make sure that Oath doesn't push too far forward. With the Fire Giant back up, could be a push in towards the objective, but Ducky getting hit by the full combo of Dardes. It's going to put a little bit of a damper on his HP. Luckily for him, he's got Quig standing by. Can throw out some of those heals, get his HP back up. A little bit closer to full with just a couple uses. And now it's Oath again, by himself. Use the ultimate away, blink for blink, between the 2 junglers. Lasbra, he's going to get the win out there, because now, no ultimate from Oath. Ducky goes up to the sky while the Fire Giant's being started up. Where will his dunk target be? Looks like it's right on top of Mike. Will crash in, gets the stun on the Baron, walls off Mike from being able to escape, and River's Rebuke will now lock Mike in place, able to walk right to the back end of the River. And it's now Nika zoning away against 2 while Oath is being handled by Lasbra and by Dardes. The fight is all over the place. No team really winning out, but it's the Jade Dragons with the healthier HP bars.
Yeah, it's only really Mike that had taken significant damage in that fight for the Jade Dragons, whereas the entirety of the Eldritch Hounds take a bit of poke here or there. Vote once more, goes unchecked in a team fight, maintains both of his relics and the ultimate Sanctified Field. And so, even with a reset for the Eldritch Hounds, even if they are able to get healthy and reestablish defensive positioning, they cannot feel confident in their ability to pull the Fire Giant. And looking at relics as they stand, no beads for Oath, Ducky as well, lacking his, and Quig. Some clear targets I saw a whole lot of damage happen to Ducky very fast. Charges up Anvil of Dawn, dropped to about 60%, and that's just Vote hitting him. PBM could pull anyone, any of these tanks. So long as Vote is nearby, they'll be dropped low.
This is that problem that we were talking about earlier with Vote. The Dragons.
All right, yeah, I mean, okay.
Okay. Mike uses ult.
He was trying to do it. You know, I get it. I get it.
But unfortunately, everybody was just a little too far away from the coffin.
And even if they were in range, Oath had overhead kick and Ducky had hammer as well as ultimate. That was a poor idea from conception. I get it though. I get it.
Thank you. Gets hit by the acid rain from Dardes. But going back to Vote, I mean, this is what we talked about earlier. Hounds have done so much to ignore Vote in these fights that now that he's 6-slotted, he's starting to become a problem. Nika dives in, stun on one, golden apple away from BennyQ to immune out the ult CC. And the Fire Giant given up now by the Eldritch Hounds. So much damage from Nika. Just by crashing in with that Lawbringer alone, even just a power cleave after, takes out about a quarter or more of the health of the carries.
The Eldritch Hounds, they've run into this exact situation 5 times in a row up against the Ferryman. You're around the Fire Giant, neither team can pull it, nobody's able to break the stalemate. So what do? You wait for an opportunity. The Jade Dragons found their poke, and now the opportunity arises. Fire Giant starting to burn slowly.
Lasbra to the backline with the Sonic Boom. Coast is out quickly. Can't get into the Bifrost in time. He gets thrown against the wall. No backup from him. It's too late by Ducky. It's already 1 kill now for the Jade Dragons and Oath. Trying to deal with the damage of the Zola run. Lasbra falls low, but able to dash his way out is BennyQ. Being handled by Nika and PBM in the backline. It's the tanks of the Jade Dragons to keep the carries out, while Lasbra's able to swoop in for the kill.
I've never seen someone so surrounded by friends, but simultaneously so alone as Vaporish Coast there. He had not a bit of peel tossed his way. Gets hit by the Sonic Boom, ult disengaged, tries to get in the Bifrost, knock up from Nika, knock up from Lasbra, and I'm looking at the rest of the Hounds, and they're on retreat. They said, you see what's happening to our ADC back there? It couldn't be me. That ain't happening to me. I won't let it be. And just completely leave him alone. Good luck getting anything done without Coast for the next 20 seconds.
Poke thrown towards Lasbra. Ult from Nika. Doesn't find anybody, but it zones BennyQ out. Ducky goes up to the sky. He's got a great dunk spot. It's 2, but Quig is already out of the fight. Vote's taking a lot of damage, but Oath takes even more. Ducky trying to make the hero play, and he does take down Vote, but he loses his life all the while. A 3-for-1 trade, but the Jade Dragons, they still have a carry for this fire.
I believe it was Hurrywin that had said, even if your ADC dies, if you've got some sort of auto attacker, you still have the battery for your team. And Lasbra's a double crit Mercury at the 38-minute mark. You don't need Vote to knock down a fire.
Coast, bit too late to get there. Does have Bifrost to get out. Ultimate was online. Bede's still a little away, but Jade Dragons get fire on 4. Those being Dardes and Lasbra for your hard Phoenix push at this point now. With 25 seconds till Vote is back up. Might be a moment before we see the Jade Dragon siege, but could at least see them start to go for some remaining neutral farm. Clean up the jungle on the right side. And Pyro, or I should say, Gold Fury, my bad, is available over on the left hand.
You know, J-Mac, there are 2 types of siege defense nowadays. There's the ones that are rooted in the Phoenix, and they're so good at stopping the bird from going down. You can keep those minion waves at bay nearly indefinitely, and that's the type of siege defense the Jade Dragons have with this composition. What the Eldritch Hounds have is, you can have all my birds, take them all, I can't defend them, but you're not killing my Titan. There's just enough damage from the Eldritch Hounds, especially Discordia is firmly within this column of, you can have the structures, but the Titan remains standing because there's such a threat of return damage that it becomes so difficult to walk through these narrow corridors into the actual Titan room. So I imagine we see the Jade Dragons at least get 1 bird with this Fire Giant. It'd be difficult to get all 3 because of how many towers are still standing. The Eldritch Hounds, it might just be a soft defense from them. Let that 1 bird go down, reestablish map state. You don't want to lose your life here. That's the only way to simplify an actual Titan siege, an actual Titan attempt, is by losing a few of your lives. If BennyQ and Vaporish Coast are alive, those 2 might just be able to stop a 4 or even 5-man push from the Jade Dragons.
The Dragons still got to go through a couple of towers. Tier 1s in all 3 lanes still available, but with double ADC and enhanced Fire Giant, the Dragons can make quick work of these structures. They're going to stick around this left side. Lasper's nowhere near. Nika standing in mid. So 3. Split pushing up the left side of the map. And then a 1-1 for the other 2. Now Ducky and Lasper joining in. It'll be 2 towards mid. And another tower for the Dragons. Do we see the immediate push for the Phoenix Siege with the minion wave still a bit out? Jade Dragons, even with Enhanced Fire Giant, not going to step into the Phoenix just yet.
2 runic bombs in pocket, Enhanced Fire Giant on 4. The one lacking it, being Vote, will slow down the Jade Dragons on Siege, but they at least benefit from having a Hunter mid. Dardes could still very quickly make quick work of either of these Phoenixes given an opportunity. That opportunity coming quickly. Quig starting to take some poke. The Eldritch Hounds, it's a soft defense. They haven't committed too much here.
Quig going to take a bit of poke from the Dragons. Oath going to take a lot. One more shot from Laz will do it. And he's got the Major Look After to drop him down. Charging up Sonic Boom now straight to the back line through Benny Q and Coast. Forces both of them out of the fight. And Quig with the river to try and zone things out. But now Ducky is crashed in the middle of 5. And he'll have to hammer away. The Jade Dragons have knocked down 1 player and 1 bird mid-Phoenix. The next one on the chopping block for the Jade Dragons. But Coast, he dashes in with ultimate. Doesn't get anybody. But he's got the Bifrost if he needs to get out. Mike, what can he do to help this team out? Because Dardes is low. He is forced out. It's another bird down. And a Sanctified Field to lock out another. Ducky gone from the Hounds.
70 seconds for Ducky, 30 for Oath. But the Jade Dragons are too low to continue sieging in towards that Titan room. Still concerned with Benny and Vaporish Coast. The damage output of those 2 enough to dissuade a push into the throne. And so, you take consolation prizes. If you can even call them a consolation, with left and mid Phoenix already taken. I thought maybe we'd see a little bit more there. Benny so far up and with so many members of the Jade Dragons nearby, but that golden apple, again, just does so much. The Jade Dragons not willing to risk it. And even beyond projections, we had thought 1 Phoenix off the first Fire Giant Siege. It's 2, and it's the 2 most valuable ones.
2 lives on top of that, both Oath and Ducky out of commission for a bit. Though Ducky back up in 20, teleport available. Can set himself up for this next Fire Giant Siege. Oath reset himself, but 45 seconds till beads are back up, so unlikely we'll see him try and start up any fights until those relics are up. Same with Benny Q, still 50 seconds until we see anything available from him. The Jade Dragons have done exactly what they need with this first Fire Giant of theirs. Taking away 2 very important structures, adding a Pyromancer, a Runic Bomb to their pocket once more. Kind of resetting themselves and refilling up because they used both of them in the last siege.
Jade Dragons have got so much advantage around this Fire Giant, J-Mac. I do not like the Eldritch Hounds in this neutral territory fight. The Jade Dragons are an intelligent team and realize all you need to do when you have this much map state pressure is drag out the fight for as long as possible. And the Eldritch Hounds, having lost so many lives in the initial engagement, haven't had an opportunity to push up these waves. Left side, we're about 15, 20 seconds away from those starting to leak into the base. So the Eldritch Hounds mid starting to also favor the Jade Dragons as it starts to progress down the lane as well. The Eldritch Hounds, the longer they show presence in this jungle, the more pressure they lose on the map.
How long are the Hounds willing to stand around and wait? Because those first couple waves on left have started to make their way to the base. And the ones in mid now starting to meet up as well. Nika's able to keep those ones at bay and allow his minions to push forward. The Jade Dragons buying as much time as they need, which is all the time in the world at this point. Mike gets caught off by the wall, but he's just fine. The golden apple misses. Mike is low, but he's got the coffin to try and drag another in. Ducky dunks down on top of Vote, but they're fighting inside the Sanctified Field. Even the river is not enough to
Mike's still alive?
stop the Jade Dragons. Mike lives through all of it, but Benny takes him down right at the tail end. Now Coast boxing up against Dardes, but Dardes loses this 3v1. It's another trade out in the midst of the fight, but Oath has grabbed a double kill, and now it's 3 surrounding Nika. He's the only one left on the Jade Dragons. That started out so well for them, but Nika's going to make sure that it keeps being a good spot for themselves, as he is the last one standing, finds a heal up against Oath, waiting for the opportunity to get out, but it's just not enough damage from the tier. The Jade Dragons are wiped by the Eldritch Hounds.
Mike just way too far forward in that fight. An easy target for the Eldritch Hounds. Vaporish Coast has been struggling to connect with priority targets. Instead says, hey, I've got an Odysseus bow. It doesn't really matter who I hit as long as someone's getting hit. And that someone is Mike. Odysseus bow rings through the entirety of the Jade Dragons. And the Dragons, they haven't got the same level of AoE damage. It's an ADC mid. It's a Ola run out of the dual lane. Sanctified Beard buys a lot of time, but it doesn't exactly deal the damage itself, and so the Eldritch Hounds tankier targets able to survive to the very end of that exchange. Nika nearly able to turn things around with that double Fearless. Bluestone just not quite strong enough, and the Bloodforge proc from Oath maintains his life. The Eldritch Hounds given a second lease on life after that one, playing very intelligently around their timing. I believe that's 2, maybe 3 Fire Minion waves that makes their way into the base, but doesn't necessarily matter. If your Phoenixes are back up, Titan will start to regen.
So no more Fire Minions for the Jade Dragons, and man, Mifflin, we were here, what, 13, 14 hours ago in this same spot?
Don't you jinx us now, man.
For the case of about 4 or 5 hours. We did all 5 games at this exact spot just last night, and the Eldritch Hounds have put us here once more with their defense and their team fight inside that Sanctified. Man, as soon as Sanctified Field dropped down from Vote, I thought that fight was over.
I thought it was, yeah.
He caught 3 people, even with River's Rebuke there. The Eldritch Hounds said, okay, we're just going to keep funneling into the 2 people inside this little spot. The Eldritch Hounds, as you call, just a little too tanky for Vote, for Dardes to deal that damage. The fights separate on a couple of different fronts out there. Dardes keeps himself so far forward to try and fight up. Ends up getting knocked down by 3. Eldritch Hounds standing by. Ducky and Oates still being alive at the end of that one means now that the Eldritch Hounds able to reset themselves, and the Enhanced Fire Giant has spawned once more.
Elixir of Power in pocket for Vaporish Co, so a good deal more damage to come in this next team fight. Pyromancer, as you said, perhaps the target here, but the Eldritch Hounds, even off of a great team fight just previously, realizing that that one comes down to the Jade Dragons getting a bit over-aggressive. The Hounds not so far ahead that they can just push in towards the Pyro, push in towards the Fire Giant. We are at a dead-even state. The only thing separating these teams now, compositions and play on field.
Where are the Hounds beelining towards? Quig goes for a couple of Riptides, trying to catch Mike out, but doesn't end up doing so. A few of them whiff just a little too far away. Mike's able to squeak by them. The Eldritch Hounds go to the Pyromancer. They'll grab themselves an extra Runic Bomb. Puts 2 in their pockets now. 1 for Coast, and 1 for, well, Ducky can't pick it up. He's got wards in pocket. Actually throws one down, thinking maybe he can grab it, but instead it's Oath who will go by and pick that one up. But the Fire Giant standing still, standing tall, I should say. Neither team willing to go for the pull just yet. We had a huge team fight just break out over on the right side jungle. The Eldritch Hounds win that one out. 2 still at the end of the day. The Jade Dragons, their team fight, maybe not as strong as they'd hoped.
And so, if you can't team fight in the jungle and neither team can break the stalemate, what can you do to change the game state? Have your junglers rotate on map, put pressure on waves. Lazara wins the 1v1 up against Oath, just handily. Has the lifesteal, has the crit, much better auto attacks. So perhaps have Lazara push down the center of the map. And even if you aren't willing to take the fight up against Oath, or whoever it is from the Eldritch Hounds that rotates in to defend, only one of you is going to have the global presence, unless it's Ducky that decides to take that fight. Instead, it's a whole lot of posturing on map once more. Eldritch Hounds, they want Mike. It worked last time. Why not again? Benny Q, credit for the kill. And Mike can't even say he was out of position this time. He just gets caught.
That is what would have been his tier 2 tower. I mean, that's almost as far back as you can go for these situations. Lazarus going to try and break things by going over towards mid. Will force the teleport out of Ducky. Semi-global from Ducky, though, able to jump back in as Fire Giant started by the Hounds. Now Nika and Lasbra, specifically Lasbra, trying to go for the wraparound. River will catch out just Vote. He's got his ultimate standing down, but he has nowhere to go. It's Benicue with 1. Lasbra to the backline. Massive Fearless by Nika, but it's not quite enough. Oath is able to live through that one. Nika, the last one standing once more for the Dragons, and he will be the last one to fall. The chase down from Quig, from Ducky, with Ko standing by. And now 4 Hounds left standing. They can run right down the right side and take game number 1.
The Eldritch Hounds figured out their win condition in the Fire Giant team fight just a few moments ago, and it's kill Mike. Run it back as many times as you can. It only took 6 to finally close out the game. The Hounds, this is what they do now. They drag the matches as long as they can. It's a war of attrition, and they've got plenty of practice at it.
Man, I feel like we're watching Season 9 Kings all over again with this team. They said, hey, that was pretty good. They were able to get a Worlds kind of win with that style of play.
Relax. All right, they were untouched, unscathed, okay?
Right.
These guys are...
It's a scrappier. It's a new blood.
Okay.
Trying to give a little bit of, I'm not going to say a full imitation, but taking inspiration.
There you go.
From what the Kings were able to
Homage.
do so. There you go. A little tribute, maybe, to the Camelot Kings of old. The Eldritch Hounds, though, 50 minutes of play. We watched 5 games last night that went this exact same way. 40-plus minutes for each one. Seems this is the Eldritch Hounds' new MO.
You know, the Hounds and the Dragons were having a bit of fun in the break room this morning. And, you know, everybody's tired. Games went long last night. Had to wake up early. I wonder if that plays in to the idea here. You know, the Jade Dragons are tired. Maybe drag this set to about 2-3 hours in game time. They're going to make a mistake. It'll happen eventually. 50 minutes in game time here, a few mistakes happen.
And that one mistake was, unfortunately for Mike, being in a lane by himself. And I'm not even going to say being so far up a lane. All he needs to be was that one isolated incident. And the Eldritch Hounds able to capitalize off it and take game number 1. It's a best of 3, so only one more now needed for the Eldritch Hounds to win. Can they do it in 2? Or we're going to go to game 3. We'll find out with the conclusion and the startup of game number 2 coming up after this break.
She got cheats, she got smiles, she got business on the side. She got treats for them guys when a baby out of town. Got sheets, got size, funny business on her mind. She's so pleased with her life, mind her business, I want mine. Have a treetop, swinging my visa, put up a cool. With the party, sipping her coffee, epic up. With a clear eye, she too weird, I like a tattoo. Then it funny, but I wonder, hey, how many times can you say no winner than true? How low can you go to keep ducking your one baby boo? I wanted some land, I wanted some nigga move. But you on the train and I want this going choo-choo. She got cheats, she got smiles, she got business on the side. She got treats for them guys when a baby out of town. Got sheets, got size, funny business on her mind. She's so pleased with her life, mind her business, I want mine. It's a tea time, leaning like in pizza. Put them knees down, squeeze it like a Capri-Sun. Got the teeth done, had to fill the crease up. Saw the sneakers by the door and realized it was time to go. Weighted blankets couldn't come for me. I'll need more to ever catch a sea. I keep wondering what I didn't see. She a damn good thief. She got cheats, she got smiles, she got business on the side. She got treats for them guys when a baby out of town. Got sheets, got size, funny business on her mind. She's so pleased with her life, mind her business, I mind mine. I get a chance to make amends. I did the dance, I switch my lens to try and glance how it makes sense. I play pretend this is the end, I get a chance to make amends. I did the dance, I switch my lens to try and make amends. She got cheats, she got smiles, she got business on the side. She got cheats for them guys when a baby out of town. Got cheats, got size, funny business on her mind. She's so pleased with her life, money business on my mind. I don't mean to put it on your nose, but it's clear how my baby's running this a block, cause you fear what you do to you if you get dirty hands.
Well, it's now a 1-0 lead for the Eldritch Hounds. One step closer to potentially sealing third place and sealing out this set. And of course, how else would they be doing it than wearing their skulls, either jerseys, t-shirts, whatever you find comfortable. Speaking of which, if you have been watching SMITE Summer Masters, and you've been here the whole time, you want to commemorate it, remember that 12-hour day we had? Remember all the good SMITE games that were played? Remember all of the action that you've seen? Well, you can get a shirt to, I guess, empower, have the memories, all of that, and make sure that it, I guess matches the vibe. They're super comfy. I got mine yesterday. It feels fantastic. Get the SMITE Summer Masters t-shirt now. Shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SBL, shop.smiteproleague.com, or you can just go to smiteproleague.com and click on the merch button, and it'll take you there to get the SBL Summer Masters shirts. They're fantastic quality, and I'm only partially upset because I'm guarantee Katie has already taken it from my laundry, and I haven't even gotten to wear it yet, Charlie.
But I bet she looks better in it than you ever could, right?
That's just true.
There you
Just
go.
Blanket statement, easily true.
I went home and did the same thing. I was like, babe, look, I got a master shirt. She's like, mine. And I'm like,
I've got a master
unlucky.
shirt.
What can you do? Sometimes you just gotta give shirts to the people you love.
Exactly. I actually, the other day, she came down wearing my World's staff t-shirt, and I was like, why do you have that? Where did you get, I've been looking for that for 2 weeks. Where was it? We found out. And you know what? What else found out? The Dragons found out. They messed around for a little bit and found out, and then the Hounds messed around for a little bit as the Dragons started to pick up the pace, pick up a lot of strength towards that kind of mid to late game. I think it was 8-2 at one point in favor of the Hounds. Things started to slip, Trelly. And then unfortunately for the Dragons, even though they prolonged the game, the Hounds hold on just as well.
Yep, and that was the question mark, right? For a while, I was like, I wonder how this Mercury pick's going to perform. And then Lasmer started popping off once he got full 6 slotted. These crits were coming through. And I was like, okay, never mind. I'm on board with this Merc pick. But as the game continued, there was so much damage coming out of BennyQ, even with some whiffed ultimates there that were joked about. The team fight. I mean, we're at 50 minutes. Again, I feel like I repeat myself a lot in these situations, but you do have to kind of ignore how we got to this point, right? Anything pre-40 minutes starts to not really matter. As long as all birds are up and the Titan's alive, it's just one good team fight. And of course, PBM goes up to split push a wave. The Hounds are hiding in the jungle. Ducky hammers out, gets a good wall. They find their pick. They're able to translate that into the snowball effect, and of course end up taking that set, or the first game rather. But it was still relatively close. I mean, it was back and forth, so much late game. I think that Dardes was having a fantastic performance on the Marty, a lot of damage coming through. The Oleron was all right. It didn't have too much action.
He ulted, which sometimes that's all you can ask
sometimes that's the best you can do, right? Is just get your ult off. So I think picks and bans for this game probably going to be a little bit different.
Well, you know what? We can find out. Picks and bans game number 2 here. Ferryman. Not even Ferryman. I'm stuck in yesterday. Dragons will be first pick here up against the Hounds. And Trelly, I'm wondering if Raven suddenly joins the top. Because, all of that, 50 minutes, there's a lot of conversation to be had. There was only one slash line that looked fantastic. And it was the 9, 3, and 9 that Oath was able to put up. So the Hounds would love to go back to that pick in an ideal world. BennyQ is now on game number 7 of Raw bans directed towards him, at least in the last 2 days, not even including last week. And there's the Emoji ban. Now, if you go back to yesterday, we saw this several times. Raw, Emoji, and then insert whatever was the most frustrating thing that you had to deal with the game before. And so sometimes it was the Raven, sometimes it was, I think, the set at one point. No, that was the Hounds that banned that. A lot of adaptations that happened to that best of 5 between the Hounds and the Dragons. Not as much wiggle room here, Trelly. If you remember, this is a best of 3. Hounds, depending on how this draft goes, how the game goes, they win it, they get 3rd. We're moving on to the finals. So Dragons, backs against the wall, have to make adjustments, and it is the Raven that they ban in their top 3.
Yep, makes sense to me. I think that taking away the Emoja also a smart look. Seemed to be something that Quig was looking fantastic on. I think he's had just a great tournament entirely, honestly. When he wasn't on the Afro, I will say I didn't love that. But the Marty gets through. And of course, sending that one possibly over to Dardez once again seems like a smart call. Vote could also take it into the duo lane if need be. But just getting that Marty for himself seems like something the Jade Dragons are leading on and was topping the damage charts throughout the entirety of that game. So makes sense to me. Question is, because the Robin is now gone and the Emoja is now gone, do the Hounds still value that Thor pick? I was talking about it a bit to you during the break, but the Thor pick seems to me not something that Ducky ever really pops off on. He is fantastic setting up for the team, but I don't know if it needs to be like that highly prioritized, and it seems like the Hounds might agree. They're going to hover something like the tier, taking that away from Nika as well as giving us a fantastic engage and annoying CC over towards Ducky could be the call. But you also got to remember that Ganesh got through.
And you know, I was actually going to ask, so it is locked in for the Hounds. It is their first pick, right? Second overall. Serket makes sense. We've seen Oath and what he can do on it. The 38% win rate doesn't instill a lot of confidence. I think it was yesterday they had one fantastic game on it, one not so fantastic game on it. But the Ganesh, against the Ferryman, Aurora loved playing it prior to the tournament.
Yep.
And so it made sense that it became a very highly contested pick between the two of them. Mike has a pretty good Ganesh, just like Mike has a pretty good insert god name here. That being said, that has not been Mike's go-to or really his forte of style, right? I mean, Mike we typically associate with someone who wants to be active and engaging. You know, Ganesh falls kind of in that middle ground. He can be the engage, but he can also play a little more passive. He's a little bit of both. Do you think it needed to be this highly prioritized for the Hounds, or like would the Dragons have actually taken it away?
My guess is the Jade Dragons didn't value the pick too much. They came in game number one like, hey, we just watched the best of 5 last night that the Hounds played, and they valued Ganesh, so we're going to throw them off their game and take away the Ganesh. After game number one, they're like, oh yeah, Yemoja's still annoying. Forget that. Let's just go towards the Yemoja ban, and they can have Ganesh. So probably not something the Jade Dragons would have jumped on immediately, especially because they didn't first pick it, but still something that Quig and the Hounds in their entirety still do value. The Baka and the Thor lock in for the Jade Dragons. That is a nasty dive already with the double assassin. You have so much physical damage, but with the Marty, you are going to come with that physical protection shred, which is going to help out in your team fight, of course, trying to burn through these tanky targets. And it will be the tier that was hovered for a second. That tells me that they're like, we really do want tier, but just got to get that Ganesh, right? We got to value that first. If we can still grab it next, we will. And the Jade Dragon say, yeah, we don't want it. Take it.
You want to talk about prot shred, right? Marty, he'll join the fight. Well, I guess if he's played in mid, he'll join the fight pretty early. If he's not, then, you know, maybe you're not going to see him too often. Ganesh, he's going to be around. He's going to be around for quite a few of them, so that'll be pretty active for the Hounds. But tier, like you mentioned, locked in to finalize their top 3. Atlas and Nox banned out by the Hounds to deal with the Dragons, specifically to target out PBM. And then Merlin, alongside Discordia, banned out by the Dragons, who have done their homework and looked at pretty much, I mean, that's 3 bans now targeted towards Benny, forcing him to play something a little more uncomfortable. Merlin, Disco have been kind of some of the more go-tos.
And then Marty's that number 3 usually.
Yeah, and honestly, I think he's been really itching to play the Raw. It just, I want to see him on the Raw to see why he wants to play it so badly. Mainly because I remember the shot, like, over the wall, he had, like, a pure blind snipe that got a kill. Was that last year?
That was at the play-ins, I believe.
Play-ins?
Right? Or when he was qualifying for
that sounds
SPL.
Right. And it was awesome. So I just kind of want to see him play that again. I understand why you're banning it, though. And so, Trelly, we get, I guess, the next best thing, at least alphabetically, which is Rom locked in, presumably for Coast.
Now I'm thinking, what does Benny go to? Immediately Baba Yaga comes to mind, and then Agni, right? Those are the 2 picks that I'm thinking of. The Agni doesn't have a great time into the Baka and the Thor. And, of course, the Baba Yaga doesn't really appreciate the Bakasura late game, but as long as you're able to build a little tanky, stay safe, could be an option. With that being said, though, we talked about the fact that Marty could go back to Dardez in mid, or Vote could take it over to Duo. We've seen them both pilot this pick so far this tournament. Now they might have to reveal that information to us. Is it going in the mid lane? or for duos, it's going to be a double hunter composition, or do they still want some more magic damage? And with that being said, what does Mike go towards? I mean, the Baron doesn't seem like something he'd want to run back, and it looks like he's going to lock in the Geb.
Huh.
Got a good matchup into a lot of the single target CC here. I wonder if he's going to go Blink, though. You do lose a lot of engage without having that Blink option. With the Morgan locked in, though, you got double Thor. You could have a Circuit on your side. There's a couple different choices to try and get some of that engage if Mike doesn't want to go towards that Blink.
Well, I know Trelly, and you know what? Maybe I'll be patient and make sure it gets locked in first. A lot of things Benny Q has played over his career.
Okay.
Eclectic God Pool is the way I would describe it. And we're waiting for that pick to maybe get locked in. The Morgan locked in for the Dragons, and this one brings an interesting dynamic to it because we had mentioned the Prot Shred specifically coming from Marty. It was just played in mid. It looked good in mid and was something that was, I mean, massive damage, held on really well. Morgan lately has been the mid pick. But Vote has definitely, he's lived through the metas where it's had to go and thrown mages over into the duo lane. Is there a world where it's Marty mid, Morgan duo, or do you prefer it flopped into where they should normally be?
Yeah, I think it's just better that way because Dardes is a fantastic Morgan, can make those clutch rotations, can show up to duo lane with a second Thor ult, you know, find solo kills with the Circuit. There's plenty of options there. I definitely think that Vote just takes the Marty and plays safe over in lane. That's kind of the best choice that this composition has. And with that being said, the Tiamat, definitely not top of the tier list anymore, but still just safe in lane, gonna get you some nice wave clear. Usually got very survivable if you're able to get to late game, 4 or 5 items slotted in. You know, that extra stance really does help her try and avoid the double assassin dive on top of the Geb shield. You gotta consider when Bakasura ult, you CC immune for a bit, but then the counter is either to run away or to be able to CC him. With that Geb shield, that gets cleansed so easily, and he's able to keep running through, so it's going to be difficult, even with only one traditional tank on the side of the Jade Dragons. If Mike's able to position himself safely and stay back with that stone shield, could be a very annoying dive to try and deal with.
No, I know yesterday we started to see, in contrast to, I guess, the hyper carry and the Bakasura, hyper carry and the Mercury, for game 2 and then 1 for the Dragons. Yesterday we saw a lot of leaning into warriors, be the setup.
Yep.
You don't have to be the guy to get the kills. You just got to be the one to set them up.
Yep.
This, at least on the Hound side, incredibly standard. And like you mentioned, on the Dragon side, you've only got the one standard tank that's going to be coming in.
Yep.
Is that going to affect them positively, negatively? Not at all. I mean, it gives them a little bit of wiggle room to do more damage.
They have 3 dedicated divers now that you have thrown the Morgan into the mix, right? Because he can be an assassin at any moment. And then you have a Geb to try and keep them alive. So if the initial dive works, yeah, you have a very easy team fight. If you're just clicking 4 and winning, that's great. But if it doesn't, it becomes a little bit more difficult. This team does rely on ultimates a lot, whereas if you look at the Hounds, think about tier engage, think about Circuit engage. You don't really need the ult to follow up with that CC. Fearless is very easy. You just blink to the backline or ult to go in, and then Circuit. There's just so much CC and lockdown available. I think the ease of engage goes over towards the Hounds, but of course, the Dragons could just be relying on, we're clicking 4. Like, we are going to show up, we're going to team fight, all of our ults go in, and then hopefully we've won the fight.
You know what? Sometimes it's just that easy. Sometimes maybe that simple is the way to slice down the fight. Again, backs against the wall here for the Dragons, Trelly. That's maybe the big thing for them to try and focus on. Not getting eliminated right here and right now. Do you think they have a comp that can win this game?
They certainly do, but I think it relies heavily on them getting the lead and holding on to it. And if it loses for the second, if they start to fall behind, it could get scary.
Well, things might get scary, and it might happen quick. We'll have to find out here, as it could be do or die for the Dragons. Hounds looking for 3rd place in game number 2.
That's right, it's game 2 now. Eldritch Hounds on match point. A win here means they'd seal 3rd place as a rookie team in their first major event. Here at the SMITE Summer Masters, Jade Dragons got to fight back through 2 games in order to find a victory. It's J-Mac, Mifflin, and Doug back for game number 2 between the Hounds and the Jade Dragons. And the Dragons taking a little bit of a page out of typically what we see out of the Eldritch Hounds, the Bakasura Thor combo, something that Oath and Ducky very privy to run in this combo. Dragons going to see how that one works through, and Mike's still going to be going with something kind of along maybe Mike's playbook. It doesn't like to stick to the tradition of what we see out of supports much anymore. The Baron support, nobody's really playing that one at this point. He's pulled out the E sets, and now he's rolling out with the Geb this time through.
Geb is a departure from what I think is Mike's bread and butter, though. We'd even talked about it in Game 1. Mike wants to be annoying, in your face, constantly aggressive, maybe a bit of a solo threat on his own. Geb's not that. Geb's not that guy. Geb's not walking into a purple buff alone and trying to steal it. He's not walking into a green buff and doing that. He's not rotating towards mid and forcing BennyQ to use everything every 2 minutes for the first 10 minutes of the game. Geb is very much so hang out in the back line, be a facilitator, use CC for peel if you elect to pick up Blink, and he has. You can blink Cataclysm, and then it's, all right, well, I've done it. That's my initiation. I will now fall back and do all that facilitator stuff. And so, makes you very, very concerned now for the Jade Dragons and their ability to get aggression rolling. And the Des does a great job highlighting that. As far as ease of initiation, who can start the fight easily, it's the Eldritch Hounds. They've got plenty of CC across the board, all of which will stick and facilitate each other. Whereas for the Jade Dragons, it's either a Nika dunk, or it's Mike. And Mike, for the most part, is going to be keeping Dardes alive.
I think maybe that's... Hold the thought there for a moment. Vapor's Coast falling low over in the dual lane. Mike just misses out on the knockup from that shockwave. Quick roll there from Vapor's Coast gets him out. But also still in that same vein, Geb annoying in his own right. Just when you thought you got a kill on somebody, just when you thought you got that last bit of CC to lock him down, Mike rolls up, throws up a stone shield. Now they're walking away with an extra 200-300 HP around their waist. The CC cleanse that comes through, always annoying to try and deal with. Maybe not nearly as much as something, say, like a Khepri, but still has at least that same annoyance factor there. So let's see what Mike does do with this Blink on Geb. So I think that's the maybe important outliers. If you're going Blink on Geb, he's already used it at least once. How often we can see the Blink Cataclysms throughout these early, maybe mid-stage Dardes in danger, but BennyQ nowhere to be seen. Went back to base for his tier 2 startup item. So not there for the follow-up to help us get that first blood.
No, but even just poking Dardes is still pretty valuable. Dardes clearly not too concerned, holds on to the beads throughout, realizing Lasbra's not too far behind him, should have been able to find that peel. And was right to do so. Oath, though, I think already getting off to a good start. I like seeing Oath get aggressive. I think it's the same for Lasbra, though. These are two junglers that love playing through that early game, love being the progenitors of aggression, making things happen, being the playmaker. Didn't see a whole lot of it in Game 1 from either. Now here in Game 2, we've seen a few attempted ganks from Oath, a little bit more aggression on this Circuit, and he's got clear targets. What we just saw happen to Dardes is probably going to happen to Dardes a whole lot.
Oath's even going to run down into Lasbra's jungle because Ducky's going for an early invade initially by himself. Lasbra's got the easiest immediate clear. Eve Minion, a great way to secure a buff, and Lasbra will get just that to make sure Blue does not go the way of the Eldritch Hounds. But still the willingness for Oath and Ducky to step this far forward early in the game to try and take that buff, even in spite of the fact that there is a Bakasura on the other side, shows confidence in the Hounds.
And the way you beat Bakasura in situations like that is you hit him with the CC. Either jump onto Bakasura and prevent him from doing it, and allow whoever else is there to secure the buff, so it could have been a Fearless from Ducky, and then Oath secures Blue, or maybe Oath peels off, throws the taunt onto Lasbra, and then Ducky secures Blue. The only thing you can't do is allow that stun to connect from Nika. Once that wall's there goes your entire opportunity to look for the blue buff invade. And speaking of damage, good lord, Nika putting out a whole lot here. Fortunately for Ducky, he's playing tier. Isn't exactly under threat, and especially now that he's blinked away, there's not really a whole lot Nika can do from this range.
I think Ducky actually sidestepped after the first tap of the hammer went, and then he sidesteps back and gets hit by the second tap of it, which dealt a nice little bit of damage back to him. So because of that, puts him in an awkward position. Wall connects as well, puts a little bit of extra damage. Ducky will be fine. Now has a full Glad Shield online, but no teleport. Went Blink first, so it's the long walk back for this tier. Typically when we do see kind of Blink in this first spot, we don't typically see a teleport picked up at that level 12, so at least for my money's worth, Ducky might have access to a completely different relic this time as Mike rolls through the lane. Quick eyes on Coast. Quick hearing check more than anything. Here's that roll going through, goes back under the tower.
You know, with the second relic spot being freed up for Ducky, I wonder where he goes. You could pick up Sunder. Seems like Soliners really do love Sunder. It makes any of the tanks in the enemy team just that much easier to deal with. But also I think Heavenly Sprint needs to be a conversation for the Eldritch Hounds. When there's a Bakasura on the other side, Regurgitate. Essentially, Bakasura's only way to fight in the late game. If he doesn't have it, he's really just farming or pushing waves and waiting for that ultimate to come back up. Heavenly Sprint makes it real difficult to even use it when you have it. The complete slow immunity, enhanced movement speed, just run out of those situations.
Oath with a fast ult towards Lazra, but does Oath have the resource to get out? Yes, he does. Leap is available, but Nika, he's going to go for the chase. Dunk to the back, fast blink. Hammer doesn't connect. He's got the wall, needs the spin, and it's first blood for the Jade Dragons. And Nika, well, he will, and he does.
Man, if Oath just hangs out in tower, blinks back into the tower or hovers there, then uses the blink defensively to avoid Anvil of Dawn, Nika can't continue the chase. But because Oath puts himself in neutral territory, air quotes neutral, between Tier 1 and Tier 2, anything but you're not getting tower shots there, Nika's able to stick around, sink in as much damage as possible. Or even had Oath just stuck closer to Ducky, maybe there's return kill potential, but isolates himself and Nika makes it look easy.
First blood now for the Jade Dragons. Gives them at least to even out the gold. The Eldritch Hounds were starting to slowly creep themselves away with the early game advantage, but now things effectively tie back up, put it slightly back in favor of the Dragons. A 6-minute first blood now for Nika should at least pose nicely over in the solo lane for the Jade Dragons. Make sure that Ducky is kept at bay. We've seen the damage output that Nika had before the defenses came online, but now that Ducky does have that defense, seems that poke is not quite as easy to deal with, especially because Ducky's got so much sustain into his kit.
Power Cleave, I'm telling you, level 6 on tier, that's the point you're aiming for. Once Power Cleave has 3 points in it, it's just so much sustain on a wave. Even a double tap from Nika might have like 5% of that damage stick, but as long as Ducky has mana, doesn't right now, but with blue buff, should soon, and a wave to hit, he'll be just fine. And we're about, what, 3 minutes away from him going in towards that second item. Will likely double dip on defense in a physical up against a Bakasura and a Thor. Those opportunities to start looking at Ducky as actual kill potential will start to slip away.
So now then, maybe second question comes is, where does Lazra and Oath go? Well, the answer, at least for Lazra, is a pick on a Quig, but he just doesn't have the last little bit of damage. Mike gets a shield up to prevent any further damage towards himself. But Nika is teleported behind Quig. I don't think Quig realized it. Instead, it's a dunk towards Benny Q. Gets out the CC immunity, catches him right out of the beads. And the transform from Dardes into the Circuit locks down Benny. And now Quig lazy backing in the jungle. Might just be the end of his life. No, Oath shows up. But Quig is still sticking around. The hammer from Nika is there. And the Jade Dragons are up 3-0.
Man, Nika is having a field day this game. That ultimate, perfect. Says, look, I could kill Quig, and it would be easy. Better targets Benny, though. Finds it. And teams up with Dardes. The transformation into Circuit. Locks him down. Double tap connects. And Benny didn't have anything left in the tank to get him out of that situation. And so, it's the Jade Dragons now with 3 kills in pocket, pushing their gold lead to about that 1,000 mark. Starting to really stack up experience, though. A lot of that experience lead lies in the middle lane. Dardes with a lead on one of his best picks. That's scary stuff.
I mean, this is back. At least a pick that he's been running for the last couple of years on his time with the old school Oni Warriors. Not our current new age form. It's one that had constantly banned away from him. Is typically, when you think back to the Warriors of Season 9, it was the Morrigan and Daji. Those are the two that you banned against them, and you had a much easier time of winning. Not a guaranteed time, but you had a much easier fight up against the Warriors. But if Dardes got this pick in particular, you could almost just count it as a win for his old teams. Hasn't played it very much so far this season, but in the few games that he has had the opportunity to, it's looked good for him.
I think the reason we see a lot less Morrigan nowadays is that those guaranteed, hey, if we get 2 of X pick, 2 of X ultimate style compositions, instant wins, don't really happen anymore. Cthulhu seems to be out of the meta, Vamana's out of the meta, so having 2 of those massive transformations, not exactly there.
Coast now, Lazra to the back line. As Coast goes up to the sky, trying to bail out as much time as he can. Quick drops the Darmic Pillar, but an ultimate in from Vote is more than enough damage to make sure that Coast goes down late on the rotation, as anybody else from the Eldritch Hounds It's 3 strong on the left side of the map, and the Jade Dragons notched their 4th kill.
Jade Dragons get a whole lot done in the PvP. Haven't done much in the PvE just yet. That gold lead is steadily expanding, but would love to see them move in towards a gold fury sooner rather than later, or even try and push down one of these tier 1 towers. Find some pressure in mid. Make it that much easier to grab the control point once that one spawns up. But instead, it's a reset to neutral once more. Just biding their time, happy with the pace of the game so far.
So the Jade Dragons, where do they continue to push their lead? Beacon about a minute and a half until it spawns in. Having a few levels up over the competition makes it not much easier to try and go for a siege that way, but BennyQ on this Tiamat, I think is where my big question mark comes from the Hounds. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of Merlin, a lot of Disco. Obviously, the Raw hasn't been allowed to go to BennyQ's hands at all this weekend. And so he goes over to this Tiamat, which kind of scales a bit later towards the end of the game, which is, well, where the Eldritch Hounds have typically been playing, is for that 35-40 minute style of play. What are your thoughts on Tiamat in general now that we have seen kind of the damage nerf across the board? Does she still hold that relevancy as a mage?
I think she's still incredibly strong. Poke potential very high. Follow-up CC. The ability to become a diver. I think probably just her best asset. Oh, okay, well, they're jumping on me in the back line. My team's also diving, so I've got no one peeling. Guess I'll jump in a quadrupedal stance, become much tankier, have access to some of that CC immunity, and just join up with the rest of my team, an option that is almost uniquely available to the Tiamat out of mid. And as you said, every game that the Eldritch Hounds have played in the last month has gone the absolute distance. So having a scaling style pick makes pretty decent sense to me. One of the primary weaknesses of Tiamat being that early game doesn't really rear its head too often. The early game has not been where a lot of the pressure has been recently. I know it's a bit strange to say that, considering the Jade Dragons have been absolutely dominating this early game, but 2,000 gold, it's a pretty paltry experience. Starting to equalize a bit across the field. Largest disparity we're seeing is about 1 level here or there. Would have thought that level lead would have been in the soul lane, but Nika, spending so much of his time rotating and putting pressure on map, has left him without waves.
Yeah, Ducky, with no access to teleport, has been able to just freely farm up on this right side of the map. Will he make his rotation towards mid? Yes, he does. He's got Blink. He's got no Sunder charges this time, but he can find one push to the backline. Could really break this team fight wide open. A fight for the beacon. Goes to the Jade Dragons, and Ducky goes in. Finds stun only on Lasbra. But he's going to need a lot of return poke from Vote. The Eldritch Hounds unable to step up to the Dragons at the beacon.
Yeah, it was a good initiation from PBM there. Finds the Blink stun on a 2. Benny forced to use his beads immediately. And once Tiamat doesn't have beads, you're concerned about Lasbra coming in with Regurgitate, or Dardes coming in with Regurgitate. So, not having access to that CC immunity, not having access to that leap, completely removes the Eldritch Hounds from contention around that Stygian beacon. The Jade Dragons able to grab yet another objective for themselves, yet another small lead for themselves. Experience really starting to stack up now. See it in the mid, you'll see it in the jungle. Eldritch Hounds have got themselves a scaling composition. It scales well, a standard composition through and through. But this lead, developing as quickly as it has, the Eldritch Hounds are going to have to draw their line in the sand soon.
So will it be around this Pyromancer then? Maybe a question. The Eldritch Hounds do push Dardes out. Dardes level 15 on the Morgan, nearing his 3rd full item now with his Obsidian Shard. He's going to have quite a punch in his base form. Then, as known, once the Morgan does transform, takes on the items and the levelings of whatever she transforms into. So those items mattering a little bit less so for the fight, but now has to use Aegis. Doesn't have beads, transforms once more into Oath and just shows him who's the better Circuit when there's a tower standing by. The Jade Dragons now with 5 on the board.
Yeah, here's the difference between Dardes's Circuit and Oath's Circuit. One's level 15, the other one's level 11. One has access to 2 relics, the other only just the 1. Oath tries his best to get involved, but that annoying nature of Geb shows itself once more. Stone Shield keeps Dardes just healthy enough to go for that turnaround play, and Oath caught out. Just a very aggressive pathing in there from Oath, too. The decision to engage on tower line, a bit concerning.
Mika to the sky, just in time. BennyQ's rotation over. Well, he forces that ultimate out. Though Ducky's still able to deal a decent bit of damage himself. Uses 1 charge of his Sunder. Another one still waiting in the pocket. And holding on to his blink. But Nika maintaining the beads, only having to use the ultimate. Means it won't be too dangerous for him over in the soul lane. In fact, could try and go for a push against Ducky this time because no ultimate is there. But Ducky, he'll find the double push. But does he have enough range to get out? Doesn't seem that there's a commitment from the Jade Dragons. Maybe just worried about how tanky and how difficult it would be to take out this tier.
Yeah, tier very survivable there. If you drop Regurgitate, wasn't available, but if you do, would have just been more heal targets for Ducky. Would have got him a little bit more space. Anytime the fight goes long, anytime the fight or gank extends past like that 10-second mark, you have to be so concerned about counter rotation. And speaking of, it's Mike now, the recipient of a lot of that damage. Stone Shield can only do so much.
Does help a little bit. Cataclysm after, but Oath jumps right in. And the Eldritch Hounds now finally have their first kill of the game. Took them 15.5 minutes and a 3-man gank on a Mike to do so. But that was their win con in game number 1, was fine picks onto Mike. Though it took one of him being all by himself over in a lane for the Hounds to be able to find a win in that game. But still showing that even though they're down 3,000 gold, even if the levels aren't as favorable for the squad, the Eldritch Hounds still willing to fight back.
But with a commitment on the left onto Mike, you kill the support, sure. What did the Jade Dragons do all the while? Grab Pyromancer, put themselves even further ahead, put a Runic Bomb in the pocket of Lasbra. Mike died in game 1, didn't accomplish a whole lot. Mike dies in game 2, and they get an objective. The Eldritch Hounds split across the map, and the Jade Dragons make good usage of that time. I'm keeping my eyes on this Serket build. We've seen Serket builds change here and there. Now that she's got crit in kit, things have really shifted up, but it feels like just a little bit more crit, maybe one Deathbringer or one dedicated pen item would really boost Oath's numbers, because as of now, the Serket damage a bit lackluster. It takes 2 full ability rotations to deal with Mike. Dardes just face tanks 1 or 2 in mid a few moments previous. With this serrated edge, assumed serrated edge in 3rd slot, penetration will help out a good deal with that. Already some physical defense stacked across the board. Nika, pretty tanky. Polar Bear Mike, very tanky as well. With Spirit Robe, anytime the Eldritch Hounds decide to fight, I don't care who it is starting the fight, unless it's just Coast 1v1ing Mike, he'll get the value of that Spirit Robe passive anytime affected by CC. A little bit more tankiness afforded to the Geb of the Jade Dragons.
I gotta say, the number of Manticore spikes we've seen over the course of the last 2 weeks has maybe been astonishing, considering it's not like the item itself got an insane bump up in numbers. If I'm not mistaken, it was only the passive change went from 2% of your health as bonus damage to 3%, so a 50% increase there. But
that sounds like a big number to me.
Well, going from 2 to 3, not a large number, but you think maybe it was also an attribute to just the global damage coming down, that extra little bump in kind of what you might call maybe free damage numbers. So maybe kind of brought that out to the forefront a bit.
That and everybody else is building tankies, so stacking up more HP as well. So you're not only getting more from the passive, but you also have more HP to play with.
Fury half HP. Quick steps up. Just Dharmic Pillar, but it's pulled out immediately. Up to the sky is Nika for the dunk in. Ducky pushes PBM away. The Hounds, they steal away the Cold Fury. And Nika dunks in the backline, doesn't find anybody. Ducky able to run right through. As it's who else but Quig to steal it away with the first ability on Ganesh.
Turn of Fate did 300 damage. That's a whole lot from Quig, beating out the confirmation of the Jade Dragons, likely kicking themselves there, who had waited so long to take a contested objective. And now the fight continues. Oath getting it started.
Mike silenced out by the Ohm and Vapor's Coast to put him in the grave. The Eldritch Hounds grab their second kill. Nika finds a wall onto just one, and Ducky goes to the backline, finds the push on Nika, gets the beads away from the Thor as the Typhoon is in the middle of the backline. Benny Q, he's going to need some help under his own tower because Dardes going through, but with Aegis, with Shell, all of this available to him, he's able to live through the fight, and it's Dardes on the run, 1 HP away, and Quig wants to chase this one out. Silence onto 2. Dardes is out, but the Eldritch Hounds have won the fight and will be taking this beacon.
I cannot believe Dardes makes it out alive there. Actually dives into the tower, chasing onto Benny, but the Eldritch Hounds could not find him. The damage was not there. There was no global presence from Coast, who had used his ultimate just prior in the team fight. And so, Dardes makes his way out barely. Does cost him both his relics as well as his ultimate. But in surviving, able to reset himself, regroup with the team, and it's a Pyromancer pull from the Dragons.
Ducky's nearby. Gets stunned now before he can even try to do anything. Against 5 would have been such a risky play for Ducky to try and push back. So the Eldritch Hounds, they get Beacon, they get a kill. And then Jade Dragons respond back with one more objective for themselves. Pyromancer, again, for the Jade Dragons, their second one of the game. One in pocket for Lasbro, one in pocket now for Nika. But at 3,000 gold lead the Dragons built up to start this game out, Miff. We're back down to only around 1,000. That one big fight back from the Eldritch Hounds, that Gold Fury steal, has put them right back in an even game.
And it was another pick there onto Mike, the only one to have fallen for the Jade Dragons twice now. So the priority targets, the Jade Dragons, still maintain their bounties. One kill on a Dardes could go a long way.
Well, when you don't got any relics left after the previous fight, makes it a little bit easier to take down a mid laner. The Eldritch Hounds do just that. 3-man rotation of mid, picks off Dardes, sets up for a tier 1 tower in mid, and Ducky able to take out a tier 1 on right.
Well, where can you go now? The Eldritch Hounds, 30 seconds to play with Dardes off the map, but nowhere to put that pressure. Steal back camp, sure. Get rid of any treasure chests that might have been there. Purple buff's already gone, speed buff's gone as well. Vote, though, perhaps caught out in this tower. Sinks some damage in towards Quig, but the fight happens in the jungle.
Ultimate from Lasbra. Oath able to leap away, jump to chase for Lasbra. Oath is just waiting for that chance to blink out, and he does get that. While Nika to the pack line to try and distract Coast and BennyQ. Coast doesn't have an ultimate. He doesn't have any relics to get back up, and he falls down before he can get into the sky. The Eldritch Hounds, they lose their carry on an aggressive push.
Yeah, the Hounds were desperate to do anything while Dardes was dead. Unfortunately, there was nothing to do, and so an overextension by the Chaos team leaves the Jade Dragons in position for a counterpunch. Take a free pick on a Coast and push in towards these towers. A tier 2? It's a dangerous call.
4 Hounds standing by. BennyQ with easy clear back. Dharmic Pillars to silence Nika in place. And a big ult by Mike to try and peel for Lasbury. He finds 2 with it, but now Nika is caught out by himself. Has the beads and hammer out. And now it's Dardes to the backline once more. Gets an ultimate and a double taunt. And a wall by Nika once more, but Dardes is forced to leap away. Half HP on 3 different players of the Jade Dragons. Unable to continue their push under tier 2.
You burned the beads off of Benny, so next time we see a transformation from Dardes, might be able to find a little bit more damage or perhaps even a kill up against the mid laner of the Hounds. But that push into the tier 2 from the Jade Dragons nearly rewarded. Just barely still standing. A stiff breeze would knock it over. The Eldritch Hounds, though, burn some resources themselves. The Jade Dragons lose beads on Nika and Lasbra, losing out on some of that initiation potential. Seeing how difficult it is to fight into a Ganesh. That silence from Quig forcing both of those relics, I believe. Anytime you initiate, anytime you're in there, Quig will peel out. And it's not only the silence, it's also protections for all of his allies nearby, making everyone just that much more difficult to kill.
Eldritch Hounds definitely set themselves up for this Oni Fury. We saw Quig immediately walk through the pit, try and get some ward coverage out. Forced rotation from Nika back over here. Teleport is available for the Thor once more, so no longer does Nika have to stick around immediately. Can go back to base and reset himself. The Fury is pulled by the Jade Dragons. The Hound's a bit slow on the trigger to jump back in. Quig is first in line, but he's also first to take massive damage. Ducky gets a big blink to the back line. That's just all Ducky doing this damage back. Has to use the Lawbringer offensively, question mark for him. Goes right up, down in place, and will lose out on his life. BennyQ used the Aegis to try and buy some more time as Dardes goes down. 1-for-1 trade, but now Vote all by himself against Oath. Oath is desperate to find that pick onto him, and it will keep the chase up. Stone Shield is there, but it's not enough. Oath able to capitalize and pick off yet another member of the Dragons, and Mike will be the next one to go. Benny from downtown finds him with the shot.
Dardes is getting great initiations. Let's start the conversation there. He's hitting targets. He's finding stuns, transforming, connecting with BennyQ consistently. But because Dardes is initiating, because Dardes is one of the first ones in, the furthest into the fight, it's easy for the Eldritch Hounds to just say, okay, well, that's the guy we were going to dive anyway. And he's transforming into relatively squishy targets. Oh, it's got a little bit of defense, but not enough to stack up against the 5 stack of the Eldritch Hounds themselves, or even his direct mirror, Oath. And so, a direct turnaround, PBM, forced to peel, has to rotate back. He's now created an easy target of himself. And the Eldritch Hounds slowly burn through the entirety of the Jade Dragons, grab themselves a Fury for their efforts. Perhaps even a Pyromancer. Vote. Slow on the respawn. Just now rejoins the land of the living. Quig. There's the pull. And the entirety of the lead that the Jade Dragons had, they had been nursing so steadily for 18, 19 minutes. It belongs to the Hounds.
And I think I can now maybe kind of open up the conversation of transformation targets for Dardes. Every single one this game has been this Circuit. Don't think I've seen anything besides Circuit from Dardes. Is that still, as this game scales later, the best option for Dardes to go to, or do you think that there are better choices for him now that we're starting to hit this late game stride?
Circuit is always going to be very viable as a transformation, especially if you can catch anyone isolated. Essentially, anytime Circuit's good, transforming into Circuit is good. So if you take a 1v1 in the jungle or in lane, or if you're chasing out and you need a little bit additional mobility, Circuit all the time. In a team fight like that, where everybody's essentially 5-stacked, I wouldn't hate a transformation into even a Ganesh just for Dharmic Pillars, or a transformation into Lasbra on this Bakasura, drop Regurgitate. Some more AoE damage would serve the Jade Dragons well, because AoE damage is where the Jade Dragons are lacking in composition.
Lasbra got crippled out of his jump, but we'll have it to get back over the next wall. As one more buff stolen away from him, shield buff now for Vaporish Coast. But no Fury, no Pyromancer, both of those on respawn, waiting for the next opportunity. The Eldritch Hounds, ever since they found that second kill of the game, they've been aggressive, maybe too aggressive. As Quig walks into 3, Lasbra drops his ultimate, picks up his 3rd kill of the game. And right in time for the Titans to spawn through. 5 versus 4 on the right side for
good blink.
Over 40 seconds. And Mike's fast reaction on the blink gets him away from a Lawbringer by Ducky.
What can the Jade Dragons do now? Is it just play around the Titan siege? With Quig dead for 30, you'd love to get a little bit more done. Send somebody towards mid, knock down that barely standing tier 2 tower. Instead, it will be a siege on the right-hand side. The Eldritch Hounds already have very defensive positioning, but the Jade Dragons make contact first. Lasbra actually in some trouble. Shots. Oh, good for Vaporish Coast. That's a return pick.
And now it's 4 versus 4. Nika's already gone to the sky. Where will he dunk back down to defensively? The advantage that the Eldritch Hound, or I should say that the Jade Dragons had over the Hounds, completely squandered by the combo of Oath finding Lasbra in the jungle, and then Coast capitalizing with the snipes after. And now it's the Eldritch Hounds with Quig back on respawn and rejoining the team are now the ones with the advantage once more.
Man, it is absolutely insane how quickly the script has flipped, right? It's the Jade Dragons pushing in. They're going to knock down the Titan. We're talking about their siege. They had the pick, and it's immediately turned on its head as the Eldritch Hounds find a much more priority target. Blink in from Oath there. I'm not sure what he was hoping to accomplish. The rest of his team a bit too far away. Maybe just seeing if he could scare some relics out of the Jade Dragons. But when they're 4-stacked like that, they'll play with a bit more confidence. That might just be it. Have your slight push on right, and then reset after a small win. With all that said, though, that's a fight that Lasbra takes with beads available, with ultimate available, and still loses. Now, he's 90 seconds without beads. A taunt from Oath, if Vaporish Coast is even in the same zip code, well, you could just have a repeat.
And even Ducky using his blink there. Trying to get things going. He tries to blink fearless, misses everybody. So Oath says, okay, well, now it's my turn to make a play. Blinks in.
Hits everybody.
Hits 2 people with both ends of the taunt. But then there's nobody there, so he says, well, I guess my flashy moment is over, and immediately disengages. And the Titans, they get nothing. All for naught on the right-hand side. Just 1 pick for the Eldritch Hounds. 1 pick for the Jade Dragons before all of that, but now set up for Primal Fury. Eldritch Hounds pull it. As Quig throws out a Sunder towards Vote. The backline, Nika fighting up against 2. Has to use the stun defensively just to get himself back out. The Jade Dragons regroup on the lower side of the Fury pit.
Benny holds on to his beads, though. Says, I'll go back to base. It's a Primal Fury. There's no one nearby. You don't have enough damage to kill me on your own. And Nika says, oh, God, he's right. Disengages. But this does create a small opportunity for the Jade Dragons. And that is now gone. Dharmic Pillars just does a little bit too much. And the Dragons forced to reset.
Benny Q on the way back, though. Had his chance to recuperate his HP. Gets that Soul Reaver online. Has now joined his team once more. the top end of the pit, but Benny, Oath, Quig, they're all fishing for a moment. Maybe they thought they were going to go for a kill. Jade Dragons are beelining up to the mid lane. PBM tries to go for Ducky, while the Eldritch Hounds will push up the left side of the map. Oath going to be left by himself to deal with tier 2, because the Dragons have all tried to go for Phoenix, but they come empty-handed this time through. Mike blinks in to try and get something done and immediately gets stopped by Ducky.
Man, that ultimate from Ducky, it looks ugly, right? He's essentially isolated. It's just Mike. It's a single target, but with so many members of the Jade Dragons just behind him, there might have been enough damage between Sunder, Cataclysm, the chain CC afterward, that Ducky would have fallen. So surviving there, so important. Becomes a tier 2 tower trade. Lazra does knock down the tier 2 in mid. Oath does the same in left. Oath does more work, though. That left tier 2 is much healthier. Leaves the Eldritch Hounds in the defensive positioning. Primal Fury pulled, going slowly, but doesn't matter how slow it is if nobody shows up to stop you or check you. The Jade Dragons just farming up on their own side of the map. It's a neutral objective now for the Hounds.
And that's where all the fight initially broken out for. This is why what the Jade Dragons had stepped up to try to get was the Fury. And they see the Hounds are there, say, okay, we'll back away. And the Hounds say, okay, well, the Dragons are here. We're not going to do anything about it. Then the Eldritch Hounds, they get a moment to breathe. They knock down a Primal. Adds that stack of damage. 7% more to be able to deal with these jungle bosses, specifically this Fire Giant, a little bit trickier to take down. With everybody's damage just nerfed a little bit across the board. So every little bit counts. It makes it that much easier for the Eldritch Hounds. Push up into these jungle fights. And even with some of the sacks from the beacon, knock down some of these towers.
I'm keeping my eyes on Ducky, I suppose, who just goes in. Sunder, massive value, but it's Nika isolated.
Nika does get up to the sky just in time. He can't stick around for the fight. And it's a lot used to try and take down just one Thor. But with Nika out, 3 ultimates down from the Eldritch Hounds, they're engaged. Stop just a little bit. Nika now on his way back to defend tier 2. The Eldritch Hounds don't have much left in the tank.
Man, the year of Ganesh is looking good. Dharmic Pillars just doing so much for the team. These splashing Sunders as well have done a whole lot of damage. If Ducky's hitting more than one target, things go well. If Quig does the same, the Eldritch Hounds have just got all the damage behind them, even with these tankier builds. Whereas the Jade Dragons, how many Sunders are we playing with? Just the one. And that's on PBM, and for the most part, it's Blink, Sunder, Cataclysm, Disengage for the Geb. Try and peel out for Dardez or Lasbra as they join the fight. So the Eldritch Hounds and their ease of access in that backline that the desk had highlighted, showing itself once more. Ducky and Oath keeping it simple. If anybody's isolated, Oath's got them, and if they're not, Ducky's going in with a Lawbringer trying to CC as many as possible. And each time the Jade Dragon's response has been, well, that sucks, and tries to disengage. And if they don't, they're surrounded by Dharmic Pillars, or perhaps Global Presence from Vapor's Coast, or the Primordial Onslaught from Benny from range. Range damage also, just a massive boon now for the Eldritch Hounds. The Morgan's real good as an assassin, real good on transformation, not real good in these poke battles.
Quig gets caught out by Mike for a moment, drops Pillars down. Ultimate from Vote to try and get some extra damage, but where will Nika crash down? He misses everybody this time through. It's Coast who takes out Mike first, and that's Benny pelting Nika with damage. Quig still alive throughout all of it, while Ducky's dealing with 2 by himself. Oath and Coast team up for 1. Lasbra able to take down Ducky at the tower line, but a dive out from Dardez. The carries are here, and Vote's got 1 stray auto to take out Benny.
Benny turns the corner at low HP, had already used all of his relics. Was so tunnel vision on the chase, wanted to shut down Dardez, doesn't realize Vote's just around the corner. The Jade Dragons return 2 for 2. The Eldritch Hounds nearly, by the skin of their teeth, able to win out in that team fight cleanly. If Benny survives, that's Fire Giant. Instead, it's a reset. The Jade Dragons hanging on.
Jade Dragons keeping this one close once more as we're approaching that 35-minute mark, that sweet spot for the Eldritch Hounds. We got them right where we want them. Seems to have been at least the call for the Eldritch Hounds every time we approach this time frame of the game. And now as we return, wait for the Fire Giant. Pyromancer's back up. Oni Fury respawning just under a half a minute. The Eldritch Hounds have time to play while they wait for their teams to respawn.
And I like how the Hounds have addressed the Jade Dragons when the Dragons are the aggressors. It's PBM blinking in, He connects with Quig. He gets all the damage that he could hope for. He's got the damage from Death from Above as well. But Vote can't stick around after ultimate. He has to disengage. If he lands aggressively, he dies in enemy territory. So after Death from Above, if you haven't killed your target, Mike's alone. And the Eldritch Hounds 3 times now this game have said, Mike's alone. Let's jump on him. Dharmic Pillar's dropped, at least one Sunder used, and Mike does not survive very much longer after that. But the adaptation now from the Jade Dragons is, okay, well, if we just need a little bit more damage, where do we find it? Everyone else is already building their damage. Mike says, I can get a little bit more. Pridwin's already starting to help out, but now going down the magic focus tree, a little bit of penetration, some power. That might be the difference. Quig survives with what, 5%, 10% HP? Maybe Mike's got enough now.
Tier 1 tower, right? Knocked away by the Jade Dragons and by Vote. There's still a couple of towers standing left for both these two teams. Got tier 2s still in solo lane. Dragons have their mid. Eldritch Hounds have their dual lane tier 2 tower there. So as we approach 36, dead even state. It's all coming down to these team fights once more. Maybe a small pick would make things easier. But Nika once more forced into the sky. Has teleport to try and get out. Has Mike as a bailout as soon as he lands, if the shield need be. But this is what the Hounds have been good at doing over the course of their now 7 games that they're playing at this point, is even if they don't get the actual kill, send somebody back, start up the objective.
Objective started, burning slowly. Keep your eyes on Lasbra. He's got the flank. Oath as well, no ultimate. Tries to use it to shut down Nika, and so the ability to catch out Lasbra takes a major hit. Fire Giant may have been pulled, but not much progress made.
Ducky blinks past 2, but gets stopped in place.
Big Sunder
Lawbringer on top, gets away from Vote though. Mike is now in the middle of the Dharmic Pillars, and he can't get out. Coast able to drop him out for a rampage, and now it's a double kill for the kid himself. Can he get any more? Rolls away, but the dot damage is there from Vote. BennyQ's still alive throughout all. One more shot to Last would do it. One more shot to Darius to take him out. He has nowhere to go. Last was the only one alive, and Benny just needs one shot to take him out. The Eldritch Hounds still standing with 4, but losing Coast will slow down this push.
Where do you go? It's 2 runic bombs in pocket. Left side Wade Army pushed up. Phoenix takes a little bit of damage. How much time do we have? 30 seconds on nearest respawn. That's PBM. I think the Eldritch Hounds might actually have the siege here, J-Mac.
See if they can do it. Minion wave now ready to go. Ducky will step in, tank it up for BennyQ. 2 runic bombs in pocket mean that this one should go down. First one used to take out the burn.
15 seconds.
And the Eldritch Hounds push in. Mike is going to be the first one on the scene. Nika immediately after. The Eldritch Hounds, the rookie kids this year, they started out maybe questioning where this team was going to go. But the answer is back to base. Instead, they said they don't have enough time, they don't have enough damage. They're going to stop. They're going to keep this one going a little longer, but they did get left Phoenix, the best one for them to keep up their fight on right.
They get the left Phoenix. They poke the Titan down to 50%. Win condition exposed. It was close. It was narrow, and it was a good attempt from the Eldritch Hounds. But once Mike's on respawn, you have to be concerned with a Blink Cataclysm. If it connects, no beads on BennyQ. He's just dead. No beads on Oath. He's just dead. And so, good play from the Eldritch Hounds. The operative word around this team this weekend has been discipline. And they show it once more. Do not go for the panic end. Instead, reset themselves. Get ready for the Fire Giant. This time, with map state advantage. And nobody on the Jade Dragons was given an opportunity to push out those waves. If anyone's going to do it, it's got to be Nika. He's at least got that teleport. He can keep the waves out, but how far can he push? The longer he's there, the more time the Eldritch Hounds have to do whatever it is that they want to do on the right-hand side.
Eldritch Hounds will grab a Pyromancer, refresh the runic bomb that they had used. At least one of them during that last little push. And now start a Fire Giant. Nika does have teleport. He can jump back in right away. Or walk, depending on how long this one goes through. But Fire Giant is getting low. The Jade Dragons don't have a way back into this one as Ducky is zoning out a couple. Fire Giant goes to the Hounds. And Ducky finds 2 with the Lawbringer. Pushes Dardes away. But Mike is caught out by himself once more. Oath finds that kill. And Ducky will force out the transform. Coast goes to the sky, but the damage was already done. It's a double kill now. As Lasbra takes down Quig, Vote in the middle, and BennyQ has got the consume to drop him down. Nika on the run as Ducky, full HP this entire fight. No one has paid attention to this tier. and it's only 2 of the Dragons left standing. And Oath wants to make that one only 1, but he misses just about everything on the Nika, who will be able to walk away.
No issues. As long as Oath can keep Nika from backing, it'll be a simple siege towards the middle of the map, and Nika is going to have a very hard time making it back to base, even with these juke shoes. Oath, incredibly mobile. Tier 2 tower, dealt with. Mid-Phoenix, gone. It's only Dardes to defend. Do you push in towards the Titan room? There's no transformation here. Dardes going to have to do it the old-fashioned way.
Nika's desperately trying to get back to base, but he's got to walk back there. The Eldritch Hounds, they've done it just about, but they still have to get the damage back to the Titan. Dardes has got to put up a miracle. Nika doesn't get up into the sky in time, and it's the Eldritch Hounds, the freshman team. They take 3rd place in their first major event. And who would have guessed that the Eldritch Hounds would have had this level of performance in their first phase?
You know, you said it, they reminded you of the Camelot Kings. I think maybe a more apt comparison is PK in their run. Battles of attrition, drag out the games, make them earn it. You want to do Fire Giant with a 10K lead? You better do it right. And no one has been able to figure it out so far, barring the teams that have pushed them down into the loser's bracket. The Eldritch Hounds deserve every single bit of credit that we could laud upon them. If you were to ask the players, they say maybe not the outcome that they would have asked for. But if you ask the fans, the expectations, the analysts, the people watching right now, nobody had the Hounds making it this far. They've done a very good job.
I mean, you even dial back to when we were first talking about these teams for the qualifier, is saying, yeah, the Hounds are probably one of those teams that could make it in. We didn't even have a guarantee that the Eldritch Hounds were going to make it into the SPL during their qualifier run. They end up being the first team through, and the Gladiators join them. We say, okay, well, we'll see how these guys do. You know, it's a new team qualifying in. If they can maybe break out of bottom 2 at the very least, that's a good one for them. They say we don't care about bottom 2. How about top 3 for the Eldritch Hounds? A 3rd place finish for the rookie team. That's it for me and Miff here on the cast. We'll throw back to the desk to break it down.
That's right. A big accomplishment for a team that, I mean, look, when you look at the history, either career path of the 2 veterans or the fact that the other 3 were in the SCC, a huge accomplishment for the Hounds. And I'm sure a brilliant bounce back after yesterday where they keep going up against their Kryptonite and the Ferryman. But Trelly, this game, it's a little back and forth. Starts out pretty Dragons heavy. And like Mifflin said, the Hounds kind of bury their heels in. They just hold on longer. They play back better. And after a certain point, they're just going to drag you into whatever game they want to play.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, right? All of their games have been going so late. Even when they lose early game, it doesn't always seem to end up mattering if they're able to find just one clutch team fight that puts themselves in the lead. There was a moment where we thought that first one team fight was going to be the end. They decide better of it. They don't go in for the full-on commit. They get the Titan down to about 60%. Say, all right, no, we cannot end. Let's full-on retreat and try again. And once they officially got that wipe, they go in and actually confirm their 3rd place placing. But man, what a fun team to watch at the end of the day. They have been bringing it, keeping it very competitive, even when they're down, as I said, and all without Benny Q getting to play Raw one single time.
Poor Benny Q. Well, you know what? One day. Maybe phase 2, Rob will come around. We'll have to see. I do think what you say, though, is maybe the most accurate. What this team can look like in the future, what they can do, I think getting 3rd after, again, a phase where you don't even know what to expect from this team qualifying in, being able to claw up to this point is already amazing. But to know that they still have another half a year to try and figure things out, I think there's a lot of potential still on the rise here. And that's not even to gloss over the accomplishments that they've had up to this point. A fantastic phase, a great debut, and a fantastic, I would argue, end for their phase right here is 3rd place in Masters. But of course, that's just us saying it. We have Coast standing by, who had a phenomenal game on ROM there, ready for an interview.
That's right. I got Vapor's Coast with me here, the carry for the Eldritch Hounds. First off, congrats on the 3rd place finish here in the Summer Masters. No, it's not the 2nd place your team was hoping for, but how does it feel coming into the top 3 as a rookie team here in this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know, it's bittersweet because of the way we lost yesterday. I feel like we lost that set ourselves rather than them winning it. I mean, credit to the Ferryman, of course. They played well, but yeah, I think coming into this season, you know, everyone's expected bottom 2 because we're a rookie team, so it's just nice to defy expectations, of course.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going on that expectation, it's something we talked a little bit about, you know, during your set yesterday, kind of during the set today, and kind of tail end was, you know, coming into this season, I mean, there was only a handful of people who maybe expecting your team to qualify up in. You guys make it to SPL. You have one of the best performances of a rookie team, being able to at least break even 5-5 out there now finishing third. Has that been a big morale boost for the team being able to have such a strong finish in your first phase?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I was honestly surprised by how good we were doing in this phase, but it's a combination, I think, of how good we were and I think how poor some of the other teams were doing. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with how it was.
And tell me kind of a little bit about that ROM game that you just had there. You know, we haven't seen ROM a whole lot this weekend. It's been kind of a lot of Cernos popping in. Hashimon was real popular as well. You had a Heimdall in game number 1. Getting some of those snipes, I mean, how does it feel getting some of those clutch snipes? I mean, there was a point where you and Lasbra teamed up, or you and your jungler Oath teamed up to get a kill on Lasbra, I should say, during that one. And then finding those snipes in the late game. I mean, how does it feel whenever you can get a pocket pick like that in a big game like this?
Yeah, I'm always just going to play what I feel comfortable with, and I asked if I wanted to dive that game, and Quick just locked it in, so I guess I'll spin the round. But I know, like, I don't know, I'm confident in my ability. I believe that, like, I'm the best in the world at what I do, so I know I'm always going to hit those snipes. If I miss, then I'm bad, but I don't miss, so.
Hey, if you tell me you're the best in the world and you put out snipes like that, I'm inclined to believe it. Coach, congratulations on the 3rd place finish today. I'll let you get back with the team, and we'll throw it back over to the desk.
Thank you.
He doesn't miss, and admittedly, we have a lot of footage that just proves that, right? Look, it was a great ROM game, and I think, again, a great performance here for the Hounds to end it. A good win for them over the Dragons. Nice 2-0 to start the day as well, Trelly. But that is not all that we have in store for you at home. In fact, that was just the appetizer. We're ready to get to the main course coming up soon. Warriors and Ferrymen, the finals of it all for Masters. The Warriors, so far undefeated since inception. Ferrymen, well, Trelly, who better to do it than the guys that always turn it up at tournament time? And, of course, what we saw yesterday, they got a lot of experience playing in the booths. Maybe still a little tired, we'll see. Although I've walked past Sino and Cyclone in them, and they seemed just as energetic as normal. So I don't think that that's going to be too much of a worry for them. Things that are exciting for the next set. What's standing out to you?
I mean, first of all, they mad dogged me when we were walking up. They were like, you know, give me the eyes. So I think, yeah, I think they're ready first and foremost. But should be an exciting matchup, as you said. The Ferrymen do tend to turn up in tournament time. Speaking of waiting room before this tournament even begun, we all predicted that the Warriors would be here, right?
Yep.
That was obvious, or could have obvious. In this case, the Ferrymen showed us that they deserve to be here in the finals as well, so I just hope we have a nice, exciting matchup.
And you know what? I expect that we will, but before we get there, we're going to kick it to a quick break. So when we get back, it'll be the Warriors taking on the Ferrymen for the finals.